with a fantastic Monday. Once again, back in the day where she belongs. Francesca, how's it going?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. I hope you're okay. Should I check on you or whatever? Do we need to
I think I'm okay. How are you doing?
I've got a whole week of news. Rather than, bless ye, news gods. Thank you for showering me with awfulness.
I am ungrateful when it comes to the awful shower that I get.
I shall betroth this to the algorithm for you. I'm sorry. This is what we do every morning.
This is what we do. And if you think that's the last accent we're getting out of Francesca, then you haven't been looking at the big breaking news of the day. So we got that to look forward to. What else do we have to look forward to? No. Damn, it's a rough news day. Anyway, no, we got a lot of really interesting stuff, just not necessarily a lot of light, happy-go-lucky type stuff. But what we do have is you, and what you have is a mission. And that mission, should you choose to accept it, is to hit the like button and share the stream so that algorithm, which is so desperate as portrayed by Francesca Fiorentini, so desperate for your approval, will give us what we need. And so if you could do that, that would be great. And if you want to send us messages, tweets, super chat, stuff like that, we'll respond as we go. Now that said, Francesca, are you ready to do this? Okay, well, get ready, because there's a lot here and I couldn't cut anything. So
that's okay.
Let's jump into it.
Do it.
We knew that the new IPCC report on the current state of climate change and projections going into the future was gonna happen today, and that it was likely to be negative. Well, it's here. Oh boy, is it negative. We've apparently entered into unprecedented territory that is being called by the UN Secretary General a code red for humanity. So we are moving into a place with our climate where computer model projections for what is likely to happen in the future are becoming increasingly difficult because we don't have a lot of past data to inform these models with. In the past, we'd have been able to look back at previous periods of heating and things like that and assume that things might go like that. But we literally they're saying we have to go back to when the asteroid that wiped out the dinosaurs hit for a period of heating in such a short period of time. Now, let's get into some of the conclusions, and there's a lot. Nations have delayed curbing their fossil fuel emissions for so long that they can no longer stop global warming from intensifying over the next 30 years, though there is still a short window to prevent the most harrowing future. And are you entering into fun territory when the future can be described as harrowing? And when, if you do everything that you can, there's still an implication that the future is gonna be harrowing. It just won't be the most harrowing. But anyway, carbon dioxide in the atmosphere has risen to levels not seen in 2 million years, according to the authors. And by the way, this report was put together by 234 authors relying on more than 14,000 studies from around the globe. Or, as I'm sure it'll be greeted on Fox News, a bunch of fake news. Anyway, the oceans are turning acidic, sea levels continue to rise, Arctic ice is disintegrating, weather-related disasters are growing more extreme and affecting every region of the world. And when we start to talk about the conclusions, the level of certainty that the authors can talk about what they think is likely to happen, we are far away from the 2 decades ago, scientists coming out in their white coat and saying, well, I think this might be bad times. Maybe you might want to look into doing something. No, they're not there anymore. The report's 42-page summary for policymakers uses the phrase virtually certain nearly a dozen times. The words high confidence come up more than 100 times. And the rate of sea level rise, the retreat of ice sheets and glaciers, and the acidity of the oceans are all described as unprecedented in the past several thousand years. So, Francesca, they are not really playing games anymore. It took them a long time to move past them. Unfortunately, as of right now, we're still playing games. So, thoughts?
At least Seattle's gonna have nice summers all year round, all the time. Yeah, no, obviously this is devastating and upsetting. And also we knew it. Like every time the IPCC releases a report every 7 years, and I feel like every time they release a report, we're always like finding out how many years left we have to prevent the ultimate doom and gloom, like not just like some forests burning and like some people losing their homes, but like everyone running for their bunkers if they have them. So they come out and it's like, they release like the white smoke, like they're announcing a new pope, and they're just like 4 years left. And then we're just like, oh God, okay, we got 4 years. What am I gonna do in 4 years? And it's, and then we just sort of like shudder and wait for them to tell us how much we're effing up the planet. And we already knew we were.
Yeah.
But like the real thing is obviously what are we gonna do about it? But yes, we knew this amount of devastation was happening. We can see it before our very eyes. You talk about 30 years, that's like this is our lifetimes, right? It's sort of the rest of our lives. And I think especially for folks, and especially for folks our age, like 21, it's sort of it is a wake up call of what are we doing with this life? What are we doing? How are we ensuring if this is the last generation that can truly stop this, how are we going to work towards that in the next 30 years of our lives or not?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and we obviously we have to talk about this. I'm hoping it's a big news story. I mean, we'll see. This is like the biggest, most important one of these reports since 8 years ago. We'll see if people care. But it kind of has the feel of, and you tell me if I'm wrong. I go to the doctor once every 2 years or 4 years for a physical or whatever. And every
in this
time,
economy, once every 9. Okay.
Every once in a while, when I remember that, oh yeah, people go to doctors routinely. Anyway, I'll go and they'll slap the thing on and then they'll put you on a scale and you'll look at it and then you'll look at the doctor and the doctor will just look at you and you're like, yeah, no, this is proceeding the way you said it would if nothing changed. But I think we'll see what happens in the next 4 years. I'm sure that doing the same thing, consuming the same things will result in wildly different outcomes. Nope, it isn't. But you know what? Whatever. It's just our planet, I guess. So it has that vibe of oh, surely this will break through, he said naively. But anyway, why don't we jump into some more of the details? Actually, yes, I think we're gonna reset here. With the IPCC report out now, let's talk about what has happened and what is likely to happen and how things just might get worse if they don't immediately get better. So humans have already heated the planet by roughly 1.1 degrees Celsius or 2 degrees Fahrenheit since the 19th century. And even if nations started sharply cutting emissions today, total global warming is likely to rise around 1.5 degrees Celsius within the next 2 decades, a hotter future that is now essentially locked in. So all the stuff that we've done that's really bad, we're gonna have more than that much more no matter what we apparently do. So what will that look like? Well, at 1.5 degrees of warming, scientists have found the dangers grow considerably. Nearly 1 billion people worldwide could swelter in more frequent life-threatening heat waves. Hundreds of millions more would struggle for water because of severe droughts. Some animal and plant species alive today will be gone. Coral reefs, which sustain fisheries for large swaths of the globe, will suffer more frequent mass die-offs. So at 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels, this is where it's getting fun. Air can hold significantly more moisture than it does now, making droughts more likely and extreme rainfall worse. I don't think that gets talked about enough, that it literally will hold more moisture in the air. That's a thing that happens and that will be everywhere. At 4 degrees Celsius, intense heat waves that used to occur about once every 50 years will become annual events. And what do you mean will become? That's happening right now. Look at Palm Springs every year. Look at, I understand we're in California, but
Palm Springs,
it's getting bad.
Palm Springs is an abomination and should have never been built in the first place. Number one, it's in the middle of a desert. But
yes,
look at Greece, look at towns in Germany being swept away. Yeah, this is not every year. This is every couple months.
Yeah,
there is an unprecedented weather event that is destroying a community somewhere around the world.
Yeah. And so look, here I'm trying to focus on so right now we have so many people in power who either don't accept that this is happening or pretend that it's not happening as they stuff their pockets with cash. If we could get them to accept it, what they might think is, okay, so it's getting a little bit worse. But that's not really how it's working. I mean, that's why we mentioned the thing about the air sucking up the moisture, causing droughts and causing problems with farming and things like that. But that's not the only example of it. And we return to this every once in a while because not a lot of shows do, but I want to focus on it a little bit more. So warming beyond 2 degrees Celsius, which is going to happen, also carries increased risk of setting off feedback processes that cause climate change to accelerate. Higher temperatures will thaw Arctic permafrost, potentially unleashing carbon that has been locked in a deep freeze for thousands of years. Methane trapped in the deep sea could make its way into the atmosphere. Wildfires could turn millions more acres of carbon-rich forests into a source of additional greenhouse gases. I often mention that there is a limit to how much heat the ocean can absorb, and that will tail off over time. That is one thing that has been sort of masking how hot the world has been getting. Some of it is going into the ocean, which we don't feel as directly, but that is not going to last forever. These sinks for carbon, the ocean, the Arctic, the Amazon, all of that, they're all being destroyed. And that means that we will not just have a worsening of our situation, we will have an accelerating worsening of our situation. And it leaves us in a place where, to throw out some numbers that will mean little to me or you probably, humans can unleash less than 500 additional gigatons of carbon dioxide, the equivalent of about 10 years of current global emissions, to have an even chance of limiting warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. And so we will get in a moment into what the US and other countries are trying to do, but Francesca, what do you think?
Okay, 500 gigatons divided by 8 billion people. How many are we?
So 7? Something like that. It's getting close, yeah.
Okay, so how many gigaton? How many point zeros of a gigaton do I get? I just let's parse it out, people. How much more can you spend? And what can you not afford to do? And I mean, this is real, right? Okay, so the thing about the IPCC is that it is effectively toothless, right? There is no enforcement agency. It is part of the United Nations, already doesn't have an enforcement body. There are not monetary consequences on countries that do not comply with any of these recommendations. They are, in fact, recommendations. And we need to change that, right? We all need to become angry Swedish preteens and demand that our governments actually act on this. It's because it is terrifying. And we know that it is not on each individual person to individually stop doing one individual thing. Yes, it helps. I'm not saying it doesn't help. It definitely fights the sadness. I know my compost in my front yard helps me feel a little bit less terrible, just a little bit. But on a macro scale, it is at the level, and all climate writers and journalists have said this, including Naomi Klein, right? That it is too big. There is too much money that needs to be invested to switch course on this. That as good as you might feel about getting a paper straw, which look, I don't even dunk on that. I think that's fine. But we need broad action. We need governmental and corporate. I mean, we need governmental action to clamp down on the corporate action. Because these corporations will make money off of the lifeboats we're using to escape this, the fire. They will be selling you their merch on that boat and be like, well, if you pay for a subscription, you'll get a daily, droplet of water or whatever the hell it is, ooh, fresh water from Amazon. And literally, I'm sorry, this is just Anna and I did a story recently about the fires in the Amazon, the actual Amazon. And I Googled, because this is how I do research, no big deal. I Googled Amazon fire. What is the first thing you get when you Google Amazon fire? Oh, the little
tablet.
Stick, exactly. The tablet, the thing that Jeff Bezos decided to name his effing product after not just a rainforest that the world relies on, that he is effectively helping to destroy because the massive amounts of carbon it takes to send all that BS all over the world. But then the fire stick.
It
and
is
I'm just
weird.
Like, we suck. We suck. Humanity sucks. Capitalism sucks.
Yeah, it'd be like a new spin-off of my product, Coral. You've liked the original Coral. Now we have Coral Bleach. That seems weird. Don't do that. Yes. And as you're pointing out, they're making money off this. And there is sort of a fundamental disconnect where the entities, corporations, politicians who are most directly responsible for all of this are making all of the money doing it. They're not just doing it because their kink is destroying the environment. They're making money off of it. We're suffering and not making any money. So you have the two different sides. And the one side that's suffering is saying, hey, would you guys like willingly, voluntarily stop making all the ungodly amounts of money that you're getting at no personal cost to you? And expecting, hey, maybe it'll work this time. Except it's not going to. So we need to replace all the politicians. We need to make doing what they're doing either literally illegal or more costly than the solution. And instead, we're wasting time arguing about whether the only politicians actually pushing for a solution here are secretly the worst. So anyway, sorry, what were we gonna say?
Are we gonna continue with this topic?
Well, we have a little bit more, but what did you want to say?
No, keep going then.
Okay, so blah blah blah. Biden says he's gonna do something. I don't really believe it. Blah blah blah. He says he has new targets, but then none of the countries are meeting the targets that they've already said they're gonna blah 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 blah. So let me give you the response. So in waiting for this IPCC report to come out, I of course wanted to know what Greta thought about it. She has her expectations going into it, and she responded thusly. The new IPCC report contains no real surprise. Actually, do you want to read this, Francesca? Would you prefer to read this?
It confirms what we already know from thousands previous studies and reports, that we are in an emergency. It's a solid but cautious summary of the current best available science. It doesn't tell us what to do. It is up to us to be brave and to take decisions based on scientific evidence provided in these reports. We can still avoid the worst consequences, but not if we continue like today, and not without treating the crisis like a crisis.
Somewhere Greta is watching that thinking, wait, did I record that?
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, and look, she's right. Again, it doesn't.
I got verklempt just doing my impression of her getting passionate. That's how both amazing she is and amazing I am. And I'm just gonna do my own over.
By the way, someone in the audience was worried because they're like, is Greta going backwards? Francesca just called her a preteen. Anyway,
you're right. She's older. She is. She's on the cover of Vogue.
She's 30 now. Anyway, yes. So she's right. I mean, there are implications for what should be done, but I would say, look, could I give you the best possible top 10 list of things that we should do? Maybe not, but I do think that on the list, I would try to fit doing literally anything. I think that would be a nice change of pace. Yeah, I just like. Here's what I know. We have everything we need to fix this. We have all the knowledge, we have all the technology, we have all the resources. We do not have to, nor can we afford to wait for some sort of massive screen that flies through the air and sucks up carbon and turns it into Tamagotchis. Like, we don't need that. It's probably not gonna come, and it'll be too late if it does. We have everything we need now. The only thing we don't have is politicians who will mandate that it be done. That you literally ban the internal combustion engine. That you like force the renovation of buildings. That you change our mass scale industrial agriculture. That you mandate all of this. You start building solar and wind power, and I will tell you when you can stop. Don't ask me, I will call you when you can stop. Just do it. Set up massive battery banks. Regional battery banks to store power, to get us through the fact that obviously renewable energy is usually best at certain times of day and not at others. We can fix that. If we can fit it in a car, we can do massive factory ones. And if it wins over the libertarians, you can involve Elon Musk. I'd really prefer that you don't, but if you have to, you can. We can do all of this, but instead we'll just spend a few more years saying, I don't really know. Maybe we need new technology or something. Like, should we do something? I don't know. Do we really want to hurt some coal company in West Virginia that's been living large for decades and decades and decades, killing us, killing its workers? How much murder exactly are we supposed to let them get away with? Anyway, obviously there's a lot that could be said here, but Francesca, what are your thoughts? How's it gonna play out?
I want you in charge, Secretary of Energy, number one. And number two, I think you're absolutely right. Look, we are beyond making the moral, the political, the scientific case on climate change, okay? We cannot get waylaid in arguing with Fox News pundits and right-wingers about whether or not we need to do these things. We know we need to do these things. It is an apolitical thing. It is as apolitical as wearing a mask and getting a vaccine to stop the spread of a global pandemic and a virus, right? Which we know has been politicized, but I think we have to stop getting everyone's buy-in and just do it and show the proof in the actual results, right? That, and look, if you are weather fitting, if you're putting solar panels, if you're using alternative energy, when it comes to federal buildings, right? Let's start there at least, right? Like, what can we do now? What can we do today? What can the president do unilaterally, right? And I think all of these things, I mean, God, we talk about budget reconciliation and all of that. Guess what? It's gonna take a good amount of money to do all of these things to actually get us on the right course. Let's do it through the budget reconciliation. We've got 51 votes, just do it. Let's just do it right now. Let's not even haggle over it. Who cares about bipartisanship, right? And that's where we have to it has to dawn on us. The other thing I'm just gonna say, two more points and I'll shut up. But one is, it is too late for sure. And we have to actually protect ourselves and all communities from the impacts of climate change, right? That is coming. We are seeing the effects of the industrial age now, right? So if we're seeing what happened in like the 30s hitting us 100 years later, imagine what is to come. Oh my God. So no matter what it takes, we need to prepare against the effects that are going to come, because it is in large part, in some parts, too late. The second thing is, we cannot be cynical, because if you pay attention, the right wing is super cynical about this. They love talking about climate change in this like, well, we'll all be dead. Well, I'll have my money. I have a bunker. F everybody else. I can build the walls around my own, palace, McCloskey style. Straight up. This is how they feel. They want us to be cynical. And if you realize that and you recognize that and you recognize the most radical thing we can do right now is to have hope and to work and organize, then we got this. We can do this.
I think that's a good point to end on. We will check in for tomorrow's show and see to what extent people are taking this seriously, to what extent the right wing is trying to gaslight around this. But for now, that's what we've got. We are gonna take a short break. We come back, we've got a lot more news, but we're gonna take a short one. So we'll see you after this. Okay, everybody, let's see what's going on out there in the audience. First of all, Kyra with a Y, welcome to Tier 2 YouTube membership. Oh, do you know what you get with Tier 2 YouTube membership? Well, every Monday we do a top 10 list. Last week I did the top 10 people in a couple different areas that I would like to meet. So I did that alone. Today, it's Francesca's time, baby. So Francesca's gonna be doing that top 10 list, so that'll be coming up a little bit later on. Progressive Canuck, welcome to Tier 1 membership. Thank you for being with us. Let's see, Asimov's Prophet says, we need to reroute the majority of the Pentagon to combating climate change. This is the biggest national security threat that has ever existed. That is indisputably true, and it won't happen. Instead, we will put countless billions of dollars every single year into stuff that poses us no actual threat. That's just my prediction. I would like to bet billions of dollars on it. Anyway, let's see, Nathan says, up here in the Pacific Northwest, the Columbia River has grown too warm for salmon survivability during their spawning migration. Yes, so thank you for that. We have talked about that a couple times. We have made it so rivers can't have fish in them. That's crazy. Anyway, Kide says, so it seems I've inspired Phoenix Dragon to get John some wormwood. My purchase has not yet been shipped, so keep checking the mail. Also, Fran, I will check for that. There was a reference to Phoenix Dragon sent me this nice carved dice tray. So thank you again, Phoenix Dragon, for that. Very, very nice. I like it. Thank you, Kide. Carrie Venus, thank you for your fox. Much appreciated. Quaker Lady says, we are parasites and we are killing our host.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, eventually it'll just shake us off like a dog shaking off fleas, but there might not be any fleas left when it happens. Ricky says that Greta quote impression was so real, I got tears in my eyes like I do when the real Greta gives one of her epic speeches. Yeah. By the way, so I saw in the comments someone said that we shouldn't make fun of the way she speaks. So I apologize if that was the interpretation. In my mind, it is not making fun of the way she speaks. What I think is funny about her impersonation is how close it sounds to Greta, who I love how she speaks. That I'm only speaking for myself, but I obviously respect Greta. That's the reason that she is literally the only reaction to the IPCC report I included. I love how she speaks with passion and knowledge and all of that. I just think it's amazing that Francesca sounds so close to her.
Imitation is the highest form of flattery. That's what they say. Little column A, little column B. She's got a unique way of speaking. It's fun to impersonate, but yes, she's amazing. She's my muse. So no one's making fun of her.
Sure, and I think she's one of the most effective speakers in the entire world on climate change. But again, noted. I'll think on it. Thank you. CJ Jones says there's nothing that we can significantly do on this planet. Yes, we should take steps, but should be sending our garbage and stuff to Venus. We should build a tethered low orbit platform to do so. Look, I read Kim Stanley Robinson too, and that is very interesting. I have a feeling there would be carbon implications to that as well. Look, if we could get some sort of space elevator set up, I'd be all for it, but it's currently, I think, out of our capabilities. Okay, over on Twitch, Shandon Lady hit 13 months of subscribership and says, wow, another month of those Bezos bucks to support the TYT family. I couldn't get through my week without you all. Keep shining the light and speaking truth to power. Shandon Lady, thank you. Daisy Saldana gifted a tier 1 sub, as did Trekkie Nurse Dragon. Thank you to both of you. Something Dragon subscribed for 11 months. Says 11 months of depressing news with Dragon Daddy. Time well spent. Thank you. Or at the very least, time spent. That's really all I'm aiming for. I'm helping you spend your time. But anyway, thank you everybody. We got more messages to read in the next break. But for now, back to the news. Okay, everybody, welcome back. It is Fantastic Mondays with myself and Francesca Fiorentini, the host of the Bitchuation Room, which is still gonna be uploaded, right?
What do you mean?
Was an issue. Wasn't there an issue?
How dare you stop it? I'm working on it. It's on Spotify and on Stitcher right now. You can also watch it back on my YouTube channel, Franny Fio. Thanks for everyone who's subscribed. Having a little trouble with the Apple Podcasts at the moment, but will be out very shortly. It was a great episode.
Joshing you. No,
I
sometimes
will
we have
kill you the next time I see you.
Shut up. Where like a past episode will be uploaded as like for today, which is obviously incredibly frustrating, I'm sure. And so people will send me messages, and I try to tell them like I have a feeling you have more control over that than I do. Like I don't know how to fix that problem, but sorry, it sucks.
No, yeah, anyway, my response is like, I'm trying, like face full of tears.
Cut to Francesca just covered in cords. I don't know how to fix it.
Yeah.
Anyway, hey, we have exciting news for you, and that is that I think for the first time, Indisputable, which is still coming up after the Damage Report today, has a guest host. I don't know that that's happened before, but it's coming. Brett Ehrlich will be taking the reins of Indisputable, making it marginally more disputable, but we'll see. We'll give him a chance. That will be Brett Ehrlich. He will be hosting. Indianapolis is having. Oh, that's for Indisputable. No, so the Atlanta area is having some power problems, probably caused by climate change. Let's keep it real. But anyway, that is coming up. So definitely stay tuned and show your support to Brett Ehrlich as he takes over for Rashad Ritchie. That said, Francesca, you ready to do some more news?
Si, senor.
Okay, let's jump into a few interviews as I try to get comfortable. Everybody get comfortable as we get into this. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was asked on the Dana Bash show whether she was still considering a primary challenge to New York Senator Chuck Schumer, and here is what she had to say.
to challenge Senator Schumer in a primary race?
Here's the thing, is that, and I know it drives everybody nuts, but the way that I really feel about this and the way that I really approach my politics and my political career is that I do not look at things and I do not set my course positionally. And I know there's a lot of people who do not believe that, but I can't operate the way that I operate and do the things that I do in politics while trying to be aspiring to other things or calculating to other things. And so all of that is to say is that I make decisions based on what I think our people need and my community needs. And so I'm not commenting on that.
Okay, so she's not commenting on that. Of course, I mean, she did. Like, that is a comment on that, Francesca. So, there was a lot about her governing philosophy in there. But in terms of whether a challenge is likely to happen, or even if it's not, why she's not ruling it out, what are your thoughts?
I mean, I will be the AOC whisperer and interpreter, and what that really meant is, if he F's up, yeah. I mean, I will see. I have my eyes on him. We will see if he disappoints me, and then I will decide. Like, I mean, she is so gracious and so honest, and there's just that AOC genuineness, that not political. Look, if she is a conniving politician, which maybe she is secretly, she masks it with a whole lot of honesty and personability. So I definitely am inclined to believe her, but I do feel like there is a little bit of a I think at this point I have him running scared enough for him to do what I want. But I think it would be hard. Look, if she challenged him in 2022, that actually, and I'm being totally real with you, that'd be a hard fight. That would be a hard campaign. That'd be a very different. Schumer is blessed on high by the 5 centrists that are left. AOC's got the grassroots support. She's arguably the most popular politician in the country, if not the most popular politician. That doesn't always translate to turnout and voting.
Yeah, and so I've previously talked about wanting her to primary him, but I do think if I had a button that I could press that's like, AOC announces a challenge, would I press it? I don't know. If I did, it would be after staring at it, sweating for a very long time, because I think she should be a runaway victor, and maybe she would. People in our positions who talk into cameras on YouTube often like to imply that they know all. I can read the code of the Matrix, but I can't. I can read the novelization of the Matrix, but that's really where it ends. He would have $300 million that would be given to him by Nancy Pelosi's brother and by Obama, and think about it, they would fire every cannon they have. Now, she would bring to the table all that she brings, but it's definitely not a slam dunk. And were she to lose and thus probably not still be in Congress, that would be a major loss. Is that actually preferable to her waiting and potentially running, for president in 3 years? I don't know, but it's certainly not a slam dunk. And anyway, to your point about sort of waiting and watching and seeing, sure, that might be what she's doing. But even the implication that she might be doing that perhaps accomplishes a lot. Chuck Schumer has never been better than in the last year or so.
Yeah,
not great or whatever, but he's better than he would be if she weren't in Congress. And she gets that whether she's even interested in running or not, which she might not be.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts?
No, I mean, I think you're absolutely right. And I think that winning your district is one thing and winning the state is different, and she could beat, hit the pavement and she could hit the pavement and she could win her district, and she did, and she proved that grassroots organizing truly does work. And we've talked about, the 4,000 votes that Nina Turner lost by. Like, that does not, it upsets me, but it does not shake me to the core. But I think going after Schumer, and this is the thing, a lot of people have tried to challenge even Pelosi, right? And Pelosi, and again, it's again a district, it's in the House, it's not the same, but you come for the king, you can't miss, right? She can't miss on this. It'll be, you want her to have every ounce of ammunition. And I think she has more to prove in her time in Congress. She has more to prove, she has more to get done. And sadly, it might mean working with centrists to move the needle a little bit more to prove that she is a firebrand, but she is also smart and she's willing to work. She's willing to not just take all the glory for herself. She is a team player. And I don't mean that in a she's gonna accept corporate money team player. She's gonna, go easy on ExxonMobil. No. I don't mean any of that stuff. I mean on tangible, practical things that help Americans' lives. So I don't want it, there is a line there. And I think she has more to prove on that.
Sure. You're totally right about like not being able to miss against Schumer. Now, on the other hand, she could miss without it being a huge deal in a presidential run. The expectations would be less. You're not going up against one person. You're not necessarily going the whole way. You could use it to elevate your agenda. Like those arguments don't really apply in a presidential primary in the same exact way.
Yes, and they elevate your status. You're there to basically, you're there to just like get your talking point out in a good way, move the dial, move the discussion, push the discussion in progressive direction. You're not wrong about that.
Yeah, and by the way, I say all this and we have this discussion knowing that AOC would probably prefer that we not focus on conversations like this, but we're not best ever. I can say whatever I want. I wish we were. I really wish we were. But anyway, okay, that said, let's move on.
This always ends in you like low-key gaslighting AOC into being your best friend. I mean, if we were best friends and you came over to my house and like we played tabletop games, then maybe I would go easy on you, but you're not my best friend yet. This is like your version.
Do you think she wouldn't enjoy some board games? She likes board games.
I just love how this is your version of debate me. It's like
play me in King of Tokyo. Come on, let's play. Anyway. No, let's not do that. Just run for president in a few years and I'll be happy. Anyway, okay, let's move on to the next topic. Okay. AOC was also asked about some of the way that Fox News has covered her and her agenda and some of the implications of that. Here's what she had to say.
Do you ever watch Fox News? Do you watch what they say about you?
Not a ton. Every once in a while I do. And I think that it's really fascinating. I actually find it to be really, really fascinating because it reveals a lot about the subconscious of folks that are crafting these narratives. And they very often are speaking to these very subconscious narratives about women or about people of color or about Latinos or Latinas or about working class people. These caricatures that are developed are not really personal. They are societal.
So you can watch that and take yourself, you, the human being, out of it and look at it almost from an academic point of view?
Yeah, actually the right-wing critique.
That seems like would be pretty hard to do.
Yeah.
Because you are a human being.
It is. The harder one is the critiques from within the party.
Yeah, so Francesca, I'm taking her word that she's able to do that. I'm surprised, because it's nonstop. And vicious and not fact-based and all of that. I wonder, are there people that you think get more sustained, unfair, insane, xenophobic, misogynistic criticism than her? Maybe Ilhan Omar?
Ilhan Omar probably.
Maybe, I'm not even sure. That seems like it would be hard to deal with.
No, but AOC said this in many interviews before that, the harder thing to take is turning around and seeing her own party either not defending her or doubling down and saying the same thing. And I think we saw that actually after Nina Turner lost, and Hakeem Jeffries was interviewed by the New York Times and was like basically using that loss to say progressives are not serious about taking down fascism. The progressives aren't serious and all this stuff. And it's like, what? What are you talking about? Like, honestly, you mean so providing healthcare to people, stopping climate change, giving, home care workers a raise and providing a universal daycare, like all the things, raising the minimum wage, that is not serious about like stopping the destitution that then can be so easily manipulated into a fascist takeover. What do you? So anyway, and I think, and I think we also feel that very much so, and it's why we often, do target more centrist Democrats, because the right is so predictable. But progressives, and not progressives, but Democrats, you're always like, which way are they gonna go on this? And so, but yeah, it is. I mean, I'm the person on Twitter who's like, oh, you said a meanie thing. Like, so I don't know how she takes it.
Well, I'm sure you get your fair share. That's definitely true. Yeah, and I think she's right. Like the stuff, like the agenda that she's advocating for, her effectiveness in communicating it, like these are all things that were, if the Democratic Party were constituted in a way that it actually shared those goals, could ride her style and the style of other members of the squad to a massive governing majority that would be incredibly durable. But they're not doing that. Instead, they backstab her. And it's something like I often talk about, like at TYT, we get attacked by basically everyone. Like we're used to the right attacking us and opposing us because they oppose our goals. But we get attacked by the centrists and the establishment too, obviously. And I get that too. We want to primary and replace most of them. But then when you even get attacked by so-called leftists or whatever, it's like seriously, is there any direction that daggers aren't coming from?
No, yeah.
And obviously because she's a singularly high profile politician, she gets it far, far, far worse.
Yeah.
But I get that last point that she made there. It's like one would hope that you could at least let down the guard slightly for a second in one direction, but unfortunately you can't. Okay, let's move to one last little bit. We're gonna go to one of the darkest bits in Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's recent interview on CNN with Dana Bash, where they return to the topic of what the representative was thinking on January 6th. Now, she had notably already said that she was worried about potentially being killed by this mob of people, these Trump supporters. It seems like a reasonable fear, but it actually goes farther than that, as she will describe.
I think one of the reasons why that impact was so doubled that day is because of the misogyny and the racism that is so deeply rooted and animated that attack on the Capitol. White supremacy and patriarchy are very linked in a lot of ways. There's a lot of sexualizing of that violence. And I didn't think that I was just going to be killed. I thought other things were going to happen to me as well.
So what sounds like what you're telling me right now is that you didn't only think that you were going to die, you thought you were going to be raped.
Yeah, I thought I was.
And Francesca, obviously that's devastating. And there's so much in news that if you pay attention to a lot of news, it sort of hits you in two ways. It's like absorbing her very real fears, very understandable fears. And then also like knowing, oh God, what are the worst people in the country going to do with that quote that we just saw? Like we remember how when she said that she was worried about being killed, how the people who literally all they are is skin, a little bit of blood, and misogyny. They took that and said, oh, look at her pretending to be scared, making it about her. She has talked about being a survivor of sexual violence. She was obviously terrified there. Thinking about what is going to happen later today when the right starts to respond to that is just so vile.
When the right and even the left is gonna respond to that, or the so-called left, right? And people who just like, half of their cliques are just, making fun of AOC as if that is a progressive or even productive thing to do. And once again, Representative Ocasio-Cortez does not have to say any of that. She does not have to be that honest, because she could be frightened by the people who have mocked her for her fear and said, you know what? I'm just gonna do a stiff upper lip and I'm not gonna say I was scared. We're gonna move past this. But instead, she gives us once again an incredibly honest, raw, and real version of herself. And I think in that first Instagram live that she did, where she talks about her fear and talks about being a survivor, she makes it more broadly about also other people who might be watching who are survivors, who understand what that feels like and understands that fear and sort of the trauma brain that kicks in, and the reminder of being unsafe. And she has the audacity to not actually have a stiff upper lip. She has the audacity to be so raw. And like, who among us could say that we have that kind of bravery to be open about the kinds of real fears that we have? The times when we were scared, the times when we cowered, the times when that reminded us of other times we were victimized.
Yeah,
that is huge of her. And so, yes, it's devastating to think about what the right is. They're gonna have a whole field day, but let's be real about this. They pick on AOC also because she's an attractive woman. They do that. She's working class, she's Latina, and she's attractive. Educated and attractive, and they hate that. They love, she's deserving. Man, there's all kinds of disgusting things out there that are being said about her, right? There's, we know that, and it's ridiculous. There's no reason to it, but yet, it's not lost. It shouldn't be lost on us that yes, there is some part of it that's like their sick fascination with her because they should think she's pretty.
Yeah. I hope we're wrong. I hope that this, as the sixth should have, will be an opportunity for people like Tucker Carlson and Ben Shapiro and others to finally come to grips with how they've weaponized race and gender to animate these people who are fueled purely by anger, rage, lust, all of that. This is an opportunity. Kind of feel like it won't be used for that, but we'll watch, we'll see. If it happens, we'll be fair. Sort of doubt it though. Okay, we're gonna take our second break. When we come back, AOC wasn't the only notable politician interviewed. We have another, but he's mostly just saying absolute nonsense. So stay tuned for that after this. Welcome back, everyone. Here's what's going on out in the audience. We had a super chat from Ishmael Houston Jones who says, the problem with watching the Bitchuation room on Sunday, then TDR on Monday, is that I then have 5 Franny free days. That is, those are the doldrums, I call them. That is no Fran's land, unfortunately, those sometimes 5 days.
I'm on TYT, sometimes I do a bonus episode.
That is true, that is true. Okay, let's see. Bernie the Kiwi Dragon says the Thames, I believe it is, was so polluted some centuries ago, and it took for it to stink up the House of Parliament before the government would do something. Can we not wait until Biden catches fire to act? Look, maybe if the wildfires were hitting DC, I don't know. But the thing is, the wildfires and the storms and the freeze and all that are hitting Texas, and that doesn't seem to be getting them to act. So who knows? Maybe that wouldn't even work. Okay, let's see. George says AOC wins with the Queen's Gambit. Do not underestimate her. I didn't watch that whole show. I get that that's a chess reference though, but thank you. Okay, Sizzazap says, how would you order politicians by their popularity? 1 Trump, 2 Biden, 3 AOC, 4 Santos? I don't, obviously they would be very different listings depending on which community you're talking about. We will see in a few years how AOC ranks on there. Okay, Ferret Queen says, this is why we can't have senior citizens making climate decisions. It's like ordering for the whole table when you're about to leave the restaurant. Yeah, I mean, obviously there are limits to how much, like everything has long-term effects, but.
That was a John Mulaney bit. That's a joke to John Mulaney, yeah. Yeah, it's a great joke, I love that bit.
I really do like John Mulaney though, he was very funny.
He's good, very funny.
He's good. Okay, over on Twitch, Nick Wax says, new show with Brett, probably kind of disputable. I'm sure he's going to make a joke to something like that at some point, so we will see. Getting Combo says, remember around the time of the January 6th riot, AOC lied was trending on Twitter. That's how terrible people were to her. Yeah, I don't want Fox. I would just, please, Fox, take the day off. I just can't even imagine what Ben Shapiro and Tucker Carlson, those are the two. Others will be bad too. I mean, like, do you think that Marjorie Greene isn't going to tweet about the video we just showed you? It just makes me sick. But Bad Rongo subscribed for 12 months. That doesn't make me sick. Bad Rongo says, and I thought I was far left 1 year ago. Well, thank you, Bad Rongo. We appreciate you being with us. How much time do we have? Okay, we're good. Kimmy Dragon subscribed for 2 months, says excited for a fantastic Monday. We're excited to have you here, Kimmy Dragon. Bama Raider subscribed for 9 months, says hi, John. I'm just happy I got to renew on a fantastic Monday. Thank you, Fran. Because of you, I can look forward to Mondays. Thank you. Yeah,
Thank you.
We like in theory when we first set it up that you were gonna do like this a day every week. I don't even remember when exactly that was. In theory, could have been any day, but thank God that it is Monday. It is good to have the week start off with you.
Oh,
Thank you. Anyways,
it is.
Daisy Dragon, thank you. Daisy Dragon subscribed for 11 months, says I love my 2AT fam. I've been a member on the website for a few years, but Twitch is now my home, even though I'm only a month younger than Cenk, and you all seem to think that makes me old. No, we mock Cenk just because he's not great with the technology. That's all. It's not necessarily an age thing. When I reach his age, I'm gonna have neural links all up and down my brain. But we'll see. That said, I don't get TikTok, so maybe my predictions are wrong. Anyway, Crump the THC Dragon gifted 5 tier 1 subs. Very nice of you. Thank you for being a good ambassador. We do have a little bit more news, so we will see you in just a few. Reminder everyone that after this program in about 39 minutes, Indisputable will be coming, but it will be led by Brett Ehrlich today. So slightly different show, should be a lot of fun. Be sure to go show him some support. Let him know that the Dragon Squad sent you. That'll be coming up in just a little bit. With that said, let's jump back into our stories. We don't have much time. Okay. Donald Trump was interviewed by Dan Bongino, and a number of different topics came up. One was the state of the pandemic under President Biden, and Trump had an interesting way of thinking about that.
Well, first of all, could you imagine if I were president right now and we had this massive attack from the coronavirus? You know, now they like to call it they have new names and they'll have other new names, but it's exactly what we had. We had the same thing. If that were me, they'd be saying, what a horrible thing, what a horrible job. I don't ever hear that, you know, and these are numbers in some cases that are equivalent to what it was, but we don't hear that. I think this.
Okay, so first of all, Francesca, he brings up a good point. Can you imagine if under his presidency we had been hit by a coronavirus? I think it's a coronavirus. I think he said it was a coronavirus. Imagine if one of those hit during his presidency.
Oh, wow, that'd be crazy.
Can you imagine, man?
What? You're so dumb. I just want to squeeze his little brain. You're so dumb. What is inside of this? This is a nut. It's just a ball of lint. Oh, it disintegrated in my ear. So stupid.
I don't know what. And look, him saying that deranged lint-brained thing that he said is bad enough. But Dan Bongino, he powered through. He's not gonna ask some sort of follow-up. He's not. I don't even know if he noticed. I'm like, should I give him the benefit of the doubt and say that he thought, what the hell are you talking about? Maybe he didn't. Maybe it just went right by his dome. I don't know. But that seems like the sort of thing.
That's very difficult for anything to get by Dan Bongino's dome.
It takes space.
Let's be real.
If you have been saying, you know what the problem with Biden is? Cognitive decline. If you've been saying that, okay, be a guy that's worried about the mental state of politicians. There's material out there. You can do that if you want. But then you can't have an interview with Lint Brain and not bring up when he pretends that the coronavirus didn't exist. Now, there are a couple of other issues. One, they're not talking about the numbers. What are you talking about? Like, I can only speak for the damage report. but we talk about it constantly. I know it probably bothers a lot of our audience. Nobody watches those videos, but we do talk about it. The thing is though, when talking about the numbers, you do get to talk a little bit about what are we trying to do? What is the person in charge trying to do? 100,000 cases under one president who doesn't even admit that it exists and says it's gonna magically disappear or whatever is slightly different than 100,000 cases under another president who is trying to get literally everyone vaccinated and is being stymied at every turn by the very governors of the states that are leading the rise in those numbers. That's what I just exercised is barely critical thinking, but they don't even do that. Anyway, now.
So what's his follow-up? What's his follow-up? Let's
there wasn't one.
Oh,
There's no
okay.
follow-up.
Right,
right. There was consequences though. So that's not the most important part of that. We're gonna have to gloss over this, but he also talked, the president did, with Dan Bongino about election fraud. And he talked about how the election had been stolen. But if you were watching in the replay, you might not have seen that. As Liz Harrington noted, she said, wow. So I went to post a clip from President Trump's great interview from Fox News last night, and lo and behold, Fox News edited and changed what President Trump said, censoring out 45 accurately describing the fake election. First of all, they didn't change what he said, they just edited it out. They didn't put in fake words, but they did cut out the section where he talked about election fraud. Now that led to, on Parler and a bunch of other right-wing things, Dan Bongino being slammed as part of the mainstream media. He's censoring the president, he's pretending the election was fair, which he is not going to let stand. So he posted, I was not made aware of any edits made to my interview with President Trump on the Fox News YouTube account. I'm looking into this right now, and I will provide a full account of what happened. Well, what happened was that they edited it. We don't need a capital commission. They were worried that he was going to get them in legal liability, so they edited it out. That's what happened. So anyway, he doesn't want you to think he's part of the mainstream media, but the issue with that, Francesca, is he does work for Fox, and these people now hate Fox. So that's a weird position to be in.
I will have a strong words for my employer. Boop-a-doop, masks are bad. What? Was I supposed to follow? I'm mad, I'm still mad. Anyway. I'm gonna just collect my check here. Like Bongino, man, this guy, he got a break. He got a break to get on Fox News. Took him off of Facebook. I miss the old Dan. Dan was just he shot from the hip when he was on Facebook. Also just shot, I'm sure, generally into the air and around.
He did. Unfortunately, we are out of time.
Okay, bye.
Thank you, everybody. We do have more coming up after this short break. Welcome back, everyone. A little bit more news coming for you in the last third of the show. And after that, Brett Ehrlich leads Indisputable. The coup is underway. It's coming from inside of the show. But before we get to that, I've got some super chats I want to read. There you go, youtube.com/indisputable TYT, no big deal. Riley Jones said, hey, Riley says, John, Fran, thanks for being amazing. You're both the best thing to happen on Monday. Much love. Now you might think I love that super chat, but I don't, because you said both of us are the best thing to happen. You have to choose. Anyway, Ray Turner says, Fran will appreciate this more than John. I have my first comedy open mic in 18 months tomorrow night. Also, AOC is better than all of her critics.
Cute.
That's awesome.
I love that.
Dude, an open mic.
Get it.
Little known trivia fact, I can scarcely think of anything more terrifying than trying to do some sort of even brief stand-up set. Like, I don't know if there's a limit to how much I would pay to not have to do that. I don't know, Francesca, how you do it. That is horrifying.
Yeah, it's the easy part. It's 100% the easy part. You would crush it. It'd be great. You just, you've got to turn off the part of your brain that like is aware of anything.
I would make like Joker look smooth if I did stand up.
Oh my
stand there
God.
with my book.
Just do the routine. I love that. That's a great Joker.
Thank you.
And then just start laughing. Okay.
Oh God. PJ says, I've been watching for so long and I can't start my day off without watching. All of you are straightforward, whether it's Dem or Rep. I know you'll give out real news. Thanks for giving me hope. Thank you. That's very nice of you. Okay, so Aximom gifted a tier 1 sub. Thank you so much. Okay, with that we do have some more news. So why don't we jump back into this? Oh, this is a fun little update. You might remember that near the close of 2020, we did a story about how the Trump campaign had been effectively stealing money from people who donate to them by using shady tactics to withdraw more money from their accounts than is likely that the people donating had wanted to give. Well, now we've gone another 6 months of reports from campaigns, and what do you know? They're still doing it, still robbing the people who love Trump most, and we want to give you an update on it. So to catch you up, shortly before Election Day last year, Trump's campaign made recurring payments the default option on its donation website, meaning that people had to uncheck the option to avoid being charged weekly. What that means is, you might think I'm gonna give you $50 or $100, or maybe I want Trumpy to win, I'm gonna give him $500, and they will take it from you every single week. So that's a problem. The campaign had attempted to obscure this detail by placing it in the fine print beneath multiple lines of bolded and capitalized text. The campaign also added a second pre-checked box that doubled a donor's donation, along with new lines of text that distracted readers from what they were agreeing to. So this came in a lot of different forms. In past videos, we've shown you many. Here's a couple of examples, some a little bit more clear than others, but you could go into this trying to give a donation, have it automatically doubled, have it automatically withdrawn every week, have it automatically withdrawn on Trump's birthday. All of this difficult for, let's keep it real, sometimes senior supporters of Trump to necessarily get on these websites packed with text. So that resulted in, let's see, $122 million being refunded to donors in 2020. And think about what that means. That doesn't just mean that $122 million was basically stolen. It's that $122 million worth of donations had donors willing to go through the process of getting that money back.
Yep.
How many didn't think it was worth the trouble? How many didn't notice that it was taken? Well, that has continued to this year, with the FEC unanimously voting back in May to recommend that Congress actually ban campaigns from doing this. Now that is pending, I guess we'll see, because Trump is not the only person to do this. He is by far the worst, but hardly the only one. Now, so far in 2021, there is less of this. It is, after all, not a presidential campaign. Donald Trump is not an elected politician, but he has still had to refund $12.8 million. Again, while he's not running for anything, there's nothing happening that you should necessarily be giving him money. They are still using these shady tactics to steal up at least $12.8 million from their supporters. Francesca, what are your thoughts?
I mean, at least like the FEC is cracking down on something, right? Like, I guess we can funnel money into our elections, as long as you're a corporation, corporations are people, but we've got limits on like how many check boxes you can do senior citizens with. And yeah, I mean, and this is sort of like where, we come back to this over and over again, that you wonder if Trump fans and MAGA enjoy being taken for a ride. We know they enjoy being lied to just about, the world and reality, but do they enjoy being swindled is the other thing, because he openly congratulates himself whenever he says, look, I only paid it, whatever it was, $725 in taxes. And that's good on me, because I could do that. I cheated and that was fine, right? And in similar fashion, he got away with this, so he's the winner and you are the loser. And I don't get it. Like, at what point do we understand that that's what this guy is gonna continually do? And look, I think Ivanka should get on Cameo, because the Trump family struggling. Ivanka will have an OnlyFans by the end of the decade. Mark my words.
Now, there's a wide variety of types of content that are available on OnlyFans, I hear. So that doesn't necessarily mean what you might be thinking.
No.
Jesus,
she's gonna read.
It's canceled. Kidding. She's gonna read what?
No, she'll
Victorian
read
poetry.
Yeah. She's going to read Yeats on her. Yeah, OnlyFans doesn't have to be scantily clad.
Mine isn't.
Yeah,
anyway, look, and it takes so much, so obvious of a grift for it to get through to seemingly any of them. Now, when we first talked about the story like 6 months ago, one of the things I was surprised by was that there were some who did get it. I mean, the very fact that they're getting their money refunded implies that they have been duped. And I know in the same way that when we talk about people, dying from COVID after saying that it's not serious, some people have no empathy for that, and I get it. I do feel bad for some of these people. There was one donor who was in hospice care, had $3,000 taken from their account in less than a month after donating $500. There was one individual who it was like $6,000 or $8,000, said the only reason the Trump campaign stopped taking money out of his account was because his account had been drained to its last dollar. And he was some old person who donated money to Trump, and they took every dollar that he had. And they just don't care. Most of them just don't care. He should have to put out a statement. He should have to disavow this technique. But he's not going to, and he doesn't have to, and they're still gonna love him, and that's really depressing. Again, he is not the only person that's done this sort of thing. There are even Democratic politicians that have done these automatic checkboxes and all that. But it needs to be made much more explicit, if not, taken like regulated against explicitly. The fact that they're automatically checked is so deceptive. Like, we're sick of getting spam email as a result of that, but we're allowing hundreds or thousands of dollars to be taken from our accounts. It needs to stop. Okay, that said, let's move on to something very different. And I believe we're going directly into this video.
You can't get that close to it. A couple seconds later, he took some steps back and he collapsed. I ran over to him and I grabbed him, and he was ODing. And I went to my trunk, I grabbed the Narcan, came down to him, grabbed him, and I did one nasal spray in one nostril, opened the other one, another nasal spray in the other one.
I remember just not feeling right, and then I fall back, and I don't remember anything after that.
Just breathe, buddy. Trying to get him to focus on just breathing, and because that fentanyl, you can't breathe.
It was in an instant. It's as though my lungs just locked up. I couldn't breathe. I was trying to gasp for breath, but I couldn't breathe at all.
Bye-bye, you okay? Talk to me.
Sorry.
Oh, no. Don't be sorry. You're okay. Don't be sorry. There's nothing to be sorry about. I got you, okay? I'm not gonna let you die.
Okay, so I will begin this discussion by pointing out that I am by no means an expert on basically any drugs, let alone fentanyl. That said, those who are say that this video that has been spread by the San Diego County Sheriff's Department, this body cam footage showing how one cop had come briefly into contact with fentanyl and then immediately overdosed on it, seems out of step with the experience of experts when it comes to this drug. Now, obviously they are spreading this video to make people very scared about fentanyl, which I sort of get. But that said, Francesca, it doesn't seem quite right in a few fundamental ways.
I mean, yeah, I have a lot of questions about what happened. I'm like, was it a lab? Because if it was a lab and you're walking in, which even then I feel like, I guess if you're walking without protective equipment, I don't know. That's the only way I could imagine inhaling that much fentanyl that you would go into sort of shock and you're immediately, yeah. So yeah, I've got a lot of questions. And it seems like there's other ways, speaking to recovered addicts, having them go on camera to talk about the dangers of fentanyl and the life-destructing qualities that it does have.
Yeah, look, again, I'm not an expert. I've never accidentally or intentionally consumed fentanyl, but let's go to some who do know about it. So Ryan Marino is a medical director for toxicology and addiction at University Hospital, says you can't just touch fentanyl and overdose. It doesn't just get into the air and make people overdose. Researchers at UC San Diego and RTI blamed social media and the US government for dubious information about fentanyl risks. Regarding airborne fentanyl, researchers have said it would take a lot of it and a long time in its presence to cause an overdose. I again take all of these, whether experts identified or anonymous people's experiences with a grain of salt or a grain of fentanyl, I suppose. But a lead on Twitter says I've responded to dozens of actual fentanyl overdoses. They do not fall in a controlled manner like this person. Also, why is this man's lips pink? If he couldn't breathe, his lips would be blue and his skin ashen. He has very good color. I agree, panic attack, heat, not fentanyl. Ryan Marino, we previously referenced, says this is very obviously not a fentanyl overdose to anyone who has actually seen one or knows how they work. And you should be ashamed of yourselves for advancing this disproven narrative that hurts people. So, I don't know, later on they tweeted, we know what factually happened and our deputy almost died from fentanyl exposure. This is a deadly substance. And again, like I'm not advocating for fentanyl or whatever. But I do know that we need to take what cops say, videos they spread. We need to be very cautious with just accepting at face value their portrayal of incidents. And this seems again out of step with reality in a few fundamental ways. Any other thoughts?
Airborne fentanyl is not a thing I've ever heard. But I'm just like, we have a lot of other questions. And it's a little bit weird because like that's such a production. They put like music behind it. It was a whole thing. And clearly they thought that this was an accurate representation or at least something they could dramatize. Maybe that means it's not actually accurate. Again, it's bizarre and I'm sad that the dude went through that. I hope that he's okay. I'm glad he's okay. But yeah, it doesn't seem like it was. I've never actually seen anyone overdose on fentanyl.
Yeah, like I don't know what happened. I don't want people to suffer, so I'm glad. Whatever it was that happened, whether it was an overdose or whether it was a panic attack or whatever, I'm glad that the cop who, assuming that was an accurate portrayal of how he actually felt, seemed really affected by it. I'm glad that he was okay. I will also point out, as I've seen some people discussing in the chat, the guy who was helping him, if that was not propaganda, was very affected by what he was seeing, which is to his credit. I want empathy. I want cops to have more empathy, but it's also more empathy and faster, like first aid than I've ever seen cops administer to people who are shot, for instance. So yeah, it is good to know that cops can do first aid. They can, like he said, I'm not gonna let you die. I would love to see a cop say that to someone who was lying for 40 minutes after just having their neck crushed or after being shot. I don't often see that. Again, I'm not speaking about these individual cops, but these are patterns that we've noticed. in watching body cam footage over the years. Anyway, that said, okay, we have a bit of time. I'm gonna read a few more comments and then we're gonna move into our next topic. Dragon Dancer says, thanks John, Fran, and Dragon Squad for being with me as I nurse my broken foot at home on the couch. Love you guys. Glad that we were able to provide that service for you. Andrew Singh, thank you for the super sticker, much appreciated. Okay, VDJ D-Rock OKC, subscribe for 2 months, much appreciated. Doc Brown, subscribe for 9 months, says, woo, 9 months, and it all started with me catching a live stream of TDR, using my Bezos bucks for all of it, thank you. For some reason, I think watching a live show first seems weird, because it's such a weird show. Like I would imagine you would watch like a clip and then gradually watch the sort of unfiltered insanity. But just like tuning in live to a live show without previously knowing what we're like, that's gotta be weird. Anyway.
Yeah,
nothing
welcome.
She is a dancing monkey. That is what
I'm a very serious commentator. That's all you need to know.
Well, actually, you're both. K Chan subscribed for 13 months, says, how do we get our friend Tatership in power? Because that's what we need in this world. Also into my second year on Twitch subs to the Damage Report and TYT, but mainly here for John. Big deal. No big deal. They do want to raise you up as a Fran Tater, though.
I'm a Fran Tater. If I imagine like a king, but like a little tater tot.
This is not a Franocracy. It is not.
No, it's a Fran Tatership.
BC Trumpet, thank you for those 10 subs gifted to people on Twitch. Much appreciated there. Okay, Doomslayer Dragon says, hope requires the real possibility of change, Fran. Call me when we have that back in stock. Oh, yeah. And then finally, Chainsaw says, enjoy this summer, for it will be the coolest summer of the rest of your life.
Don't say that.
That is surprisingly cold considering the content. Okay, anyway, let's jump into probably one more story. Let's go directly into this video.
Get the hell out of here! No one wants you here!
Even customers that get out.
It is illegal.
Don't get on my customer. Don't touch me. My customer.
You're being aggressive to us right now. You need to get out.
Go ahead. Get out.
Did you try to
Get out.
This is my job.
Every customer complain. Because of you.
No. I don't.
No. Every customer complain.
No. You wouldn't have to say that. Get out.
Get out.
Okay. Don't do dirt.
Every customer complain.
You want to hit me? Go ahead. Go ahead. Call the police. Get the hell out. Why are you yelling at me?
He assaulted me.
No, he didn't. I saw the whole thing. I saw the whole thing.
Get out.
No, he didn't. Trash you. You're the one that doesn't want to wear a mask right now. We're all wearing
Every
masks.
customer complain.
You want to go back? Go back. Get the trash.
You're illegal.
I love watching what looks like an older woman having to be held back, trying to get into that guy's face.
Hell yeah. We will hold, Asian aunties will hold scallions with one hand, fresh scallions are about to make some good food in one hand, and like get up in your face with another, and rock a visor. 3 things all in one: mask, visor, scallions in your face. Get out of here.
I love it. So that took place in Arcadia, California at an H Mart. And obviously, like, that's the funny angle. I don't like that there's someone who is so vigorously opposed to wearing a mask that they will go up against what looks like a combination of a bunch of the employees and a bunch of the other people shopping there too. And what I do like though, Francesca, is they're not messing around. Like, they're continually telling him, get out of here, get out of here. We don't want your business, you need to go. Why you wouldn't just leave at that point? I would be mortified, but they seem immune to mortification.
Just why? Like, there are people, we live in a moment where people go in maskless to shops and stores and just are like, I'm gonna be a hero, like I'm gonna stick it to the man. I'm gonna go viral. This is gonna be like, I am gonna just berate any older Asian ladies and people in their own store. Like, this is the moment that we're in. This is their soapbox, is going maskless into a store and thinking there's some kind of, a firebrand. Like, you're not,
Rambo
buddy.
Or something.
That dude is definitely gonna launch, an entire podcast and a channel off of that.
Oh God.
And I hope that the family does as well. I mean, it is so ridiculous. And couple questions and a couple notes. One, obviously, the fact that it is an H Mart, the fact that it is owned by, Asian Americans should not be lost on anyone at a time when the violence continues, the harassment continues. Clearly, this gentleman feels emboldened. You have to wonder if the owners were white, how he would respond. And then the other thing,
good point.
Yeah, and then the other thing is just, the security guy maybe could have done a little bit more. I'm like not sure why he's just kind of standing there,
Well, I don't know. I don't know if that guy is security.
It says security on his arm.
Does it? Oh, see, for me, it just looked like does it say security?
No, well, early there at some point, a security guard walks in to frame.
Oh,
there
I
he
see.
is.
Okay. No, that guy. Oh, yes, there is. Okay, so I was talking about the other guy. What I like about the other guy is that anti-masker is all he wants is to get in the face of an Asian American female.
Yes.
And this guy is not having it. Like, the anti-masker is trying to get around him to get to those women who are shopping, and he is putting himself between them, even though it necessitates having that guy breathe his likely COVID-infested breath on him. So I did appreciate that at least, but you're right. The security guard should have been doing something. I don't know exactly what, but yeah.
I think I'm gonna go as this auntie for Halloween. She's such a G.
I think we have a picture we could bring up if you need notes on the costume.
Yeah. She is my muse.
Yeah, and look, I'm glad that you mentioned obviously the specific sort of nature of the shop. Like, that's probably why he is there.
Yeah, it's why he feels entitled.
You can't separate these things. Yeah. Anyway, I don't know if have we come up with a specific name? Is there like an official name for the male Karen? Is it a Kevin? Is it something like that? But anyway, that's what it is. And you get the little bit of misogyny. He's not satisfied to yell at a guy. He wants to get in a woman's face. Likely experiencing some racial animus there as well. Thankfully, it's a Ken. A Carl, thankfully it seemingly didn't end in violence, but certainly got a spread wide. 1.5 million views in a single day. These don't seem to be stopping more people from doing them, but I maintain that hope to this point. Anyway, Francesca, that is unfortunately all the time we have, but thank you as always for joining us on the program.
Thank you.
You're one day off of Bitchuation Room. What did you all talk about yesterday?
It doesn't matter. Just listen as a podcaster on my YouTube channel, Franny Fio. The biggest thing is that I will be in Portland doing a live show of the Bitchuation Room on Thursday, September 2nd in Portland. So stay tuned for that. And also, y'all, September 14th, if you're a Californian, we have to vote for Gavin Newsom. I'm sorry, it is what we have to do. I hate that this is what we have to defend, but I hope we talk about it on this show. We cannot allow him to be recalled. Sure.
You don't think that Larry Elder would be better?
Mamma mia.
Anyway, okay. Well, all that is well noted. Thank you, Francesca. Francesca and I will be recording a top 10 list after this. So if you're a tier 2 or tier 3 member on YouTube, that'll be coming up in a little bit. But for now, that's all the time we have. Thank you everyone for joining us. Indisputable is coming up, led by Brett Ehrlich. What? Yeah, Brett Ehrlich. Tune in, see what it's like. Tell them the Dragon Squad sent you. But until next time, stay safe out there, stay sane out there. We'll see you soon.
everybody. I dabbed before we began. Can anyone hear me? I assume people can hear me. I dabbed before this started, and as a result, I lost audio. That's not a joke. I really can't hear or see anything, so that's fine. We're having a really good time here already on Indisputable. Dr. Rashad Ritchie is out today. I'm Brett Ehrlich, and I am here to. Can you hear me? Can I get a visual representation that people can hear me? Sure. Okay, so we got the webcam mic working. That goes fine. You know, really what happened, just to keep everybody updated on what's going on, we are live on the internet. And we're also live on linear. And of course, Dr. Ritchie is not here. He had a power outage in his neighborhood. And as a result, you're stuck with me. I'm gonna try to fix this as we go along. So don't worry about it, we'll be totally fine. And there's nothing else we can do besides really put up with it as we progress. All right, fine. It's testing, 1, 2. Don't worry about it. This is Roku, Zumo, Pluto. They really get us. So that happened. Hey everybody, it's Indisputable. I'm Brett Ehrlich, sitting in for Dr. Rashad Ritchie. I had some technical issues due to unbridled enthusiasm, trying to counteract for how intense it is to hear that there's a power outage going on in Dr. Ritchie's neighborhood. And as a result, I have to fill in. But you know what? I really appreciate the chat who stuck with us through all of that. And hopefully you'll stick with us through the rest of the show. We've got an amazing rundown of things. We've got a fantastic guest who we'll bring on in a second. Jackson White is here to help get us through the rest of the news today and really just complement everything that I lack. So I feel like we have a well-rounded show. Sorry for the technical difficulties, which it's one of those Mondays. But if you think, and also I do want to kind of tease what we have in ahead of us today. There are passengers on a plane that were about to get kicked off for not putting their shoes on, which is really not a thing. I have inside information on that. And an entire group of passengers came to their defense to keep them on that plane. Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz say literally the stupidest things that I have ever heard grown humans say. We got of course, a wish of Karen Wood, and we've got some other stories later on in the show that are a little more soul crushing. But we have to bring that news to you just to let you know the full gamut of what we have in store. But we will start on kind of a morbid, but somehow against all odds, like hilarious note with Donald Trump. So let's get into it. If you think you're having a tough time, just imagine what it must be like for Donald Trump. He is alone in probably a stained bathrobe with not much going on, as he is no longer president. And he actually admitted that for one of the first times. Unfortunately for him, it was while he was saying something else that was incredibly stupid to Dan Bongino. Take a look.
Well, first of all, could you imagine if I were president right now and we had this massive attack from the coronavirus? Now they like to call it they have new names and they'll have other new names, but it's exactly what we had. We had the Same thing. If that were me, they'd be saying, what a horrible thing, what a horrible job. I don't ever hear that, and these are numbers in some cases that are equivalent to what it was, but we don't hear that.
There is so much stupid about what he said. There's so much infuriating because it is definitely this woe is me mentality. And that he wants pity because he's no longer president. And then there's this weird instinct that he has to say that he's being treated unfairly, even though he's not being treated like anything. People are moving on and forgetting about him. I do want to say the thing that probably jumped to your mind first, everybody, when you heard Trump say, if this attack by COVID happened on my watch, it would have been much worse. I take you back to an NPR report from Trump's last full day in office to kind of dispel this rumor that there wasn't an attack of COVID during the Trump era. It says on Tuesday, the last full day of Donald Trump's presidency, the death toll reached 400,000. Once an unthinkable number. More than 100,000 Americans have perished in the pandemic in just the last 5 weeks of the Trump presidency. Again, that was from January 19th, 2021. But there's a lot of reasons, Donald, that people are upset. Were upset with you when 400,000 people died, and it had to do with you saying stuff like, "Let's inject people with ultraviolet rays and bleach to clean out their system." It wasn't that there was an attack of COVID during your era. It wasn't that. It was the way you were handling the attack of COVID during your era. He wants all this credit for doing Project Lightspeed, which sure, that was something that I think with great confidence I can say any president who could have been in office at that time would have allocated resources to expediting the development and approval of a vaccine. I'm sorry, you just can't have it. What you just. Coming back and forth. All right, fine. There we go. Now it's wildly loud. You can't have it both ways, Donald. Unfortunately, I apologize for all these technical issues. There is something going against us intensely in the grand scheme of things, but we'll try to get it figured out by the end of the show. Anyways, you can't have it both ways. It's the fact that you handled it so poorly. And when people are looking out in the United States right now at how it's being handled, there's still a lot of people handling it poorly. But getting vaccines to people is not a problem. So here to discuss more is Jackson White, the editor-in-chief of Politiscope, the app, as well as a contributor to Rebel HQ. Welcome, Jackson. What do you think about this?
Well, I think it's important to point out that even though they just refunded donors another $12.8 million, is that this really won't have very much effect on the enthusiasm for the support that he has for the people that he does have within his pipeline. He's made an entire career of being a con artist. The $25 million he had to pay back for Trump University after stealing $50 million. After saying he never settles, but he settled that case because if he didn't, he may have had to pay up to $200 million. All the workers that he stiffed through his history of working with casinos, he bankrupted that underground football league just to save his own skin. His father coming in, just example after example after example of him not only being a fraud, but as you were pointing out, just the way that he handled COVID as a whole. He's just. Nothing about his leadership is solid. Nothing about it is competent. And this is just more of the same old. And unfortunately, he's still looking like the main contender for the Republican 2024 ticket. Unless Ron DeSantis can take the hype from him. I know GOP donors are rushing money to Tim Scott, but Republicans are not about to vote for a black man. So still, it's looking like Donald Trump is the 2024 Republican candidate, even though.
Do you think that it's at all possible that Ron DeSantis could ever, in any case, if Trump wants to run, do you think DeSantis would ever just stick around and be like, let's give this a shot?
I mean, like if you mean like if he would he run against Trump?
Yeah, would he ever run against Trump? Would he ever find?
I don't think he would, and at least at this point, I don't think he would, because his brand is so closely tied to Donald Trump, and Donald Trump wouldn't like that. So if anything, he would position himself to be a vice. But yeah, I mean, I'm glad you brought up that point, because I hadn't really considered that. It may be bad to not just the DeSantis brand, but just to the Republican Party as a whole, if everyone isn't still united behind Donald Trump.
Yeah, and a little bit of what Jackson was talking about. Trump is refunding money to people who donated for him. This is an ongoing story, and even though in the past he's had to refund some donations, he still continues to do so. So former President Trump's campaign and the Republican Party returned around $12.8 million to donors in the first 6 months of this year. These refunds, according to the New York Times, were some of the biggest outlays that Mr. Trump made in 2021, and he has built up his $102 million political war chest and amounted to roughly 20% of the $56 million he and his committees raised online so far this year. So 1 in every $5 that Trump raised in the first half of 2021, he has had to give back. And for those who don't remember, the mechanism by which these ill-gotten gains were gotten, Trump's it was previously reported in April that his reelection campaign had refunded around $122 million to donors in 2020. Recently released federal records have revealed that the Trump campaign has so far returned $135 million to campaign donors. And Trump's political operation began opting online donors into automatic recurring contributions by pre-checking a box on its digital donation forms to take a withdrawal every single week. Donors would have to notice the box and uncheck it to opt out of that donation. And then there was a second pre-check box that took out another donation known as the money bomb. I feel like if you have something called the money bomb, you might be in a scam. So they obscured that fact even further, according to research from the New York Times. Trump's team obscured that fact by burying the fine print beneath multiple lines of bold capitalized text. And we have an image of these things, even though they're yellow and in bold. Like, look it down at the bottom. It's like, make this a weekly donation until 11/3. Donate an additional $100 automatically on the 9th. That is crazy. When you found out about this scheme, Jackson, what'd you think?
I think that Trump lives like a drug addict, like a gambling addict. Like he just needs more and 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 more, and he can't stop it. And like just how you pointed out, like just little bitty letters at the bottom, keep donating for a month, add an extra $100. For a man who's supposed to be so on top of his game and so on top of his finances and his business, he certainly behaves like someone who's in the hole, or someone who has an insatiable addiction that they just cannot cure. And yeah, I mean, and it really kind of represents also the way that this country has been running for decades, if not really its whole existence. Just a sugar high after sugar high after sugar high. How can we get the biggest short-term gain? And Donald Trump is the id of the United States of America.
Yeah, that's exactly it. All right, we're gonna move on to our next story. This we're gonna take to the skies for this. So here goes. There was an EasyJet flight that tried to remove 2 black men from the cabin. For what reason? Did they threaten to stage some kind of terrorist attack? No, they didn't put their shoes on for takeoff. This took on place on a flight from London Gatwick to Malaga in Spain. And the video shows the passengers objecting to their treatment. It was posted on Twitter. Let's take a look at that.
It's the general response is literally the whole plane is
There's something about the people being like, don't get off. Don't get off. What is this, America? We can't just throw people off for race. Though, anyway, so that's what happened. In the end, the 2 men were allowed to stay on the flight as the cabin crew had changed instead. There's a little bit of specifics now. This is some more details. The airline reportedly attempted to remove the 2 men for, quote, huffing at a member of the crew when they were asked to put their shoes on for takeoff. The argument occurred during the flight's taxi on the runway, thus forcing the plane to turn around. According to Business Insider, an attendant called the police to report 2, quote, disobedient passengers, leading to 4 armed officers entering the plane, taking the 2 men's passports and offloading their luggage. After the complaints of the other passengers, according to Business Insider, the 2 men were permitted to remain on the flight and the cabin crew was changed instead. The Daily Mail reports EasyJet say that the crew was replaced because they exceeded their work hours and not because of the passengers' objections. This is called timing out. So there's that. We have more details, but first, Jackson, what are your thoughts?
Well, my initial thoughts were that if I was working, I wouldn't have cared. I mean, it's not just that they, put these 2 men through this, but the entire rest of the passenger crew had to be held up for hours. Nobody really cared. Just a big issue of people taking their jobs a bit too seriously. That's kind of a thing. Like you can be like, hey, can you put your shoes on? They don't want to. Be like, I don't get paid enough to really escalate this. I'll just let them keep their shoes off. And then too, it's easy to, for authorities all over the world to kind of pick at minorities because, small instances in their mind could escalate into bigger ones. Oftentimes that's how these types of situations are looked at and handled, and why people seem to maybe take them so seriously when they're not, because perhaps these fellas are dangerous, so.
Yeah, of all the things you can do with feet on a flight, I feel like not having them on for takeoff is not the worst one. I asked a former flight attendant about this very recently, about this very story, because I heard, well, if someone isn't, obeying the rules that are there for your safety and mine and the safety of the crew, then sure, you have to abide by those rules. I mean, this sounds like a Karen thing where Karen wouldn't put her shoes on, so everyone was like kicked her off the flight. But when I was expecting that response, but the flight attendant just said, that's not a thing. You have to put your shoes on. Do they want to take, ostensibly that measure is for safety. So in the event that you do need to evacuate, you need to have shoes on. But then again, like she asked, like, would they make the women wearing heels take off their heels, because that's not the optimal footwear for running, proceeding down the aisle and out of the plane in the case of the emergency? This is one of those things where it seems like you are looking for something if you call it out. Like there's people without shoes on. If you don't have your seatbelt on, yes, you have to have your seatbelt on. If your tray table is not in its upright and locked position, that is another issue, hurting the person from getting out of the aisle so they can evacuate. But in this situation, what another indicator should be the rest of the entire group of passengers who are sitting there looking at you, who are trying to get this person off the plane, and saying, just let them sit without the shoes. It's not like they got smelly feet. Just let them get up, or let them just stay on the flight, because you know what's gonna happen? As soon as we're in the air, they're gonna take their shoes off. And as long as they're not like up next to my face as I'm sitting there, I feel like we're gonna be all right. All right, we gotta take a break. When we come back, I don't wanna count my chickens before they hatch, but I think we will have fixed all these technical issues. So don't go away. As Dr. Ritchie says, stick and stay. Indisputable.
I'm old enough that I remember when Captain Crunch put the berries in it.
Yay, crunch berries!
And I was like, ooh, the fake berries.
Remember?
We're gonna try that.
We did a story back in the day about how a woman sued, General Mills.
She'd been eating it for 4 years, right, believing that it was actual berries. Yeah. She's like, these aren't real berries at all. Yeah. I'm like, I got news for you. Captain Crunch isn't really a captain or a person. Joining me now, legendary whistleblower and American hero, Edward Snowden. First question is, hey, where are you?
I'm in my apartment in Moscow.
All of a sudden, in the studio. Jim Gaffigan, everybody.
Mental illness is, completely undiagnosed in our society.
It's not about a particular administration. It's about a broken system of power, and through that, really, the instrumentalization of a system of not justice, but injustice.
People understand whether they claim to deny climate change or not. Our collective house is in crisis. We're also dealing with the legacy of 40 years of economic policies that have made people's lives more precarious.
Sometimes you got to force people into their humanity. Sometimes you have to shake people into empathy.
Senator Elizabeth Warren joins us in the studio.
Healthcare is a basic human right, and we are fighting for basic human rights.
In order to actually achieve that vision of everyone having access to the same resources and getting to determine the outcome of their life, we have a lot of work to do, and it needs to start right now.
Here's something you may not know. When you deposit your money in a big bank, it doesn't just sit, safe and secure, in a vault. Instead, your money could end up building oil pipelines, mining for coal, or drilling in the Arctic. So if you're concerned about the planet, give your money something good to do. Make the move to green with Aspiration's fossil fuel-free account and join the thousands each week who are switching to save their dollars and save the planet at the same time.
Welcome to the Damage Report. I'm John Iadarola. This is gonna be a big one.
What Donald Trump has done as president has cut taxes for the wealthy and made life better for rich people. But he's made life worse for poor people.
We're making America great again by throwing more money at the military to destroy other countries because that makes us great instead of investing it in ourselves.
That it's Donald Trump and it's Stephen Miller. The choosing is based on wanting to create cruel and inhumane conditions to scare other people away from ever coming to the United States.
The opportunity to make money off of tragedy is the American way.
There's only one place to put garbage people: in the trash.
We've never had so much access to so much information with so little idea what the hell is going on.
What does enforcing our borders have to do with traumatizing children? Absolutely nothing.
I think a sane person could say the current situation we have right now is radical. But what we're doing is literally making the world more like hell. That's a warning sign.
ShopTYT.com now has books. One of them is Ryan Grimm's book, We've Got People. That's a saying that AOC said, they've got money, we've got people. It's the best tracing of the AOC victory I've seen anywhere. It's the most accurate, and it's got great details. The book actually goes all the way back to Jesse Jackson and how he's the original Bernie Sanders. If you want to know how we're going to win going forward, those lessons are super important, and they're in Ryan's book. So check it out right now at ShopTYT.com. We found the perfect person to lead the army, Allison Hartson.
The establishment media works hand in glove with our corporate legislators, and our corporate legislators work hand in glove with the corporation. And we're going to make it so that it's a decentralized force throughout the country so that we can quickly identify stories, quickly identify troll farms, and go in and neutralize the enemy, and then start building responsible media throughout the country and on every platform available.
Welcome back to Indisputable. Again, Dr. Ritchie is having, where there's a power outage in his area, and so he was unable to join the show today. He will be back tomorrow. And again, welcome to our linear audience as well. We are now live, not only on Facebook and YouTube and Twitch, but we are also on Roku, Zumo, Pluto, Samsung TV, and all the other places where you watch the Young Turks on linear. This is live and it'll be re-airs later in the day. So thank you all for joining us. Normally it's not me, and there are way fewer technical issues. Speaking of which, super chat people, I appreciate the support, but there are so many super chats here giving me the "you could do it, Brett," that it's almost patronizing at this point. So thank you to a Florida Dragon. You're indisputably Brett Ehrlich. Thank you for not making us wait until Friday for your wit and humor. Thank you. David says, I predict that only Black Chicago cops are going to be prosecuted for unjustified shootings and brutality. Even police accountability is weaponized. That is true. It seems like you watch a lot of this show, so you know that. Tyler Hendricks says, we demand Mike Lindell impressions. You guys are not going to get any today, so you're going to have to cry into your pillow. It's my Mike Lindell impression. Kai, just for $5, you too can get your Mike Lindell impression. Kelly O'Hara says, no doctor today, but I'm still here to say Brett Ehrlich brings a smile wide as a country mile. Don't get so blue, he'll slay Karens for you. So thank you. That's a great little poem. And then Tam I Am, nice to see you. Good to see you as well. And then, oh my God, we got a bunch. Non-human humanists gives us 5 of some currency, CHF. I don't know what that is, but says Trump is an Olympicon. His disciplines triathlon, his triathlon is gaslighting, throwing stones while sitting in a glass house, and throwing his people under a bus. Thank you for that. Christopher Moore gave $5. Says, I love you, Brett, even though you're not the good doctor. I hear there is a reboot of Thelma and Louise. Its working title is Karen and Karen. I like that. All right, we got a lot more, but I do want to say to the Twitch audience, thank you, Velvet Goldmine, for the 100 biddies. I'm so excited that you're filling in today. And Carp ODB, what kind of cereal is that on top of the fridge for Jackson? What's your cereal, Jackson?
Man, up there I got Golden Grams and I got some Frosted Mini Wheat Thins, but they the cinnamon flavor, you know what I'm saying? So I just moved in here, so I had to get me some good cereal. It's mandatory.
A Frosted Mini Wheat Thin that's cinnamon is almost a hostile act against Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
I thought the same thing, but I went on ahead and just decided to go with something new this time. I probably won't like it very much. You know what I'm saying? Just to keep it 100, but we gonna see. We gonna find out.
If you don't like it, you just have to remind yourself, at least you're having a delightful bowl of cereal. Like, yes, you can't be mad.
No,
you still get to do this.
Exactly.
All right, so here we go. We're gonna get into our next story. Matt Gaetz and Marjorie Taylor Greene. This is amazing, so let's do it. Matt Gaetz has a new podcast called Who Cares? No, it's called Firebrand, and it's on brand with the book you'll see on his set way too many times. He sat down with Marjorie Taylor Greene, and obviously this is a propaganda move to have some kind of like fireside chats, but it kind of devolves into a dumpster fireside chat as they discuss this new term that Marjorie Taylor Greene has for when capitalism occurs. Take a look.
These large corporations are
military-industrial complex.
Military-industrial complex is a major issue. So I have a term for that. I call it corporate communism. Corporate communism destroys small businesses in America. And I have a very good example from my district. They destroy the small businesses and the corporations gain all the control and they can't be defeated. And they do the bidding of the government like they're doing. Biden's saying, the government's not going to mandate vaccines, but the big corporations are doing it. Corporate communism, they're putting the policy in place through their businesses on their employees and on their customers, like we've seen with the airlines.
What she's talking about, and I'm not the only person to point this out, when corporations do whatever they want, however they want, and they get to, even in her version of it, like collude with the government to do so, that is capitalism. When the companies do whatever they can to maximize profit, that is not corporate communism. That is capitalism. Maybe that's just my read on it, Jackson. What do you think?
Well, first of all, this is the gathering of the geniuses, clearly. Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz, the two highest profile Republicans in the party other than Donald Trump. But it's interesting that as they deride corporate communism, or as you pointed out, capitalism, they also support the same policies that go along with the effects of what they're criticizing. You know, whether it be constant tax cuts for entities that are much larger than any small business ever will grow to, whether it's the cutting of regulations that keep people's food and water safe, that keep buildings and construction safe, whether it be regulations that keep climate control measures in check. All of these things that they're very loudly against that don't really help bring the middle class together whatsoever. Wages have been low, rent and everything else continues to go up, and yet they're members of the Republican Party. So, you know, it's really just an oxymoron in and of itself. Anytime a Republican talks about, you know, how bad corporate America is, and yet they're always at the same time talking about how terrible socialism is. So, it's just a bunch of this and nothing else, ultimately.
Right. It's crazy how close they get. So it's crazy how close they get to that Martin Luther King quote that's like, capitalism is rugged individualism for the poor and socialism for the wealthy. Like they're kind of dumb stumbling into that. And of course they are, because they need to shore up this populist sentiment on the right that Trump also himself just sniffed out was there. And Steve Bannon actually just pointed him more at. This is what they're trying to do. But what is wildly frustrating about it is like the companies that you're talking about, as Jackson, you say, like the capitalist structure is what sets that up to succeed. And your side is going for it more than anyone else. And when it comes down to it, the things that would protect people from the ill effects of this capitalist system that you're only calling communist because you want to use the word bad and you're saying communist instead of looking up what communist means. There are ways that we can protect people against these ill effects, and you're not gonna like them because they're workers' rights. And they want to fight for the small business. Why? Because Marjorie Taylor Greene is a small business owner, but she doesn't understand that everything she does every day in the rest of her job as a congressperson is helping the lobbyist giving structure, the lobbyist industrial complex that she also chimes in Matt Gaetz calls the military industrial complex, because of course he does, because that's another thing that they say instead of bad. They don't really know what it means, but they say it instead of bad. If you don't like the military industrial complex, why don't you vote against military spending? No, they just want to say that they're against government spending. They just want to say that they are against war, but they'll still vote for all the stuff that they use to fund wars. It's not a consistent thing. And you can hear it in Marjorie Taylor Greene's voice when she sounds exactly like Sarah Palin saying, when he rears his head, I call it corporate communism coming from Russia. But don't say Russia because it's 2021. And now when you say Russia, I get to say, you guys are stupid. There's more from Matt Gaetz. Let's take a listen to what he said.
My observation is that the elites in our country who are in media, who are the pundits and the columnists, they are gaslighting the private sector. What they're saying is, well, it's totally acceptable and appropriate for big business to treat people differently based on their vaccine status. I believe that the front line of this fight will actually be with large corporations that decide to develop their own vaccine passport, to use commercial air travel, to use other things that have become common in American life. And these are many of the big corporations that were shoveling cash at the BLM movement during the George Floyd riots. And so I've lost confidence that they're really acting in our country's best interest. I'm not against America having successful businesses. No. We want that to happen all over our country. But I also remember a time when the Rockefellers, the Carnegies, the Vanderbilts, they weren't just industry tycoons. They were also statesmen. It was always about our country.
Guys,
Rockefeller, a statesman. Rockefeller, one of the former richest men on earth, one of the richest men in history, being just a noble statesman. Matt Gaetz, who talks about the elites in this country, whose father was a senator, who refuses to step down from office while being accused of being a creepy rapist, basically, who can't keep his thing in his pants. A guy who, is, they're talking about this corporate communism, but they love Donald Trump. Are you for strengthening unions? Are you for raising wages? No, you're not for any of these things while you sit up here and talk about elites in this country. Like, get out of here, man.
Right, those robber barons, that's who they were, man. They were robber barons. They were carpetbagging robber barons, whatever you want to call it, who threw human death and suffering while also like hiring Chinese workers to build the railroads.
And had protesters shot. Don't forget about that. There were massacres. Protesters were shot when they were trying to unionize in those times, but they were statesmen. And this is what's so goofy about it. And the longer I work in politics, the more it's just like this space attracts people who want power and not necessarily people who want to do good, obviously. But that, people who want power aren't always the brightest. They're just ruthless.
Right. You're calling them pinkos, but they're calling the Pinkertons. Like that's what's happening. All right, let's move on to this next story. Wish you Karen would.
You want to call the police on them for having a barbecue on a Sunday?
You're still free. Back off!
I'm going to tell them there's an African-American man threatening my life.
Because he's blocking you in?
Yeah.
So the ambulance here dealing with the stabbing victim should move because you're inconvenienced.
The world is not going to stop. If that was critical, they wouldn't be sitting in a parking lot
it's not
doing
critical,
that.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. So.
And I'm sorry that people don't like that. That's just tough.
Why are you harassing first responders doing their job, though?
Listen, don't come between Karen and her parking spot, no matter what kind of an emergency it might be. So as you can see in the video, no one's safe for Karen's wrath when it comes to parking, whether it be the poor EMT worker responding to a stabbing victim, or even in another case of another Karen, a Hawaiian cop trying to move along traffic in a parking lot.
Yeah, I mean.
Ooh, keep driving. No, it's not enough. Park your car. Keep driving. Like what the hell?
You better get the away from me. You!
We have a car. This is a roadway over here, man. Can you please move?
Everyone better stop yelling at me right now. I'm not moving.
Can you please move your car?
You!
Same thing for on us. Park over here. Okay?
I don't listen to you either. Shield. Listen, you short piece of okay? Grow some.
She told me when
baby, grow some balls. No, I'm not moving. Listen to you.
No.
You can talk all you Hawaiians. Okay. The white lady's crazy. You can talk all that you want. You. That's enough. No, it's not enough.
So there you go. That is. I've seen her before. She's in. She's the first person in a mashup of those where they replace her sound with zombies. So it's like Karen's as zombies, where it's like really intense thrash metal, and then you just hear and honestly, the sound she's actually making in that video is more terrifying to me than the sound they replaced it with in the parody version. Jackson.
Yeah, her scream was primal. Like it was really coming from the pits of her soul, like that crackle, you know what I'm saying? And first and foremost, if I or much of anyone ever talked to a police officer like that, they would definitely hit me. I mean, no doubt they would hit me, they would beat me up, they would have a point to prove, how dare you speak to me this way? So obviously the entitlement shines through there. And then the other woman, mad about her parking spot, EMS doing their job. Obviously it's her place to decide what a true emergency is. We can't have the professionals deciding that. We can't have them answer the call to do their job. No, it's her who decides what's an emergency and what's not. People like this, they have bad days repeatedly, and they need to get some therapeutic help.
Yeah, and there's all these details. The more you watch it, I'd seen that once before. I watched it this morning, but the thing that jumped out to me is the chronology of her complaint. Right. So at the beginning, she screams loudly, primally, like she looks like an anime, and then later, her complaint to the police officer is that this is just another Hawaiian person telling a white person that they act crazy. What? How do we describe your scream from before if it wasn't you being absolutely crazy? Like I'll come up with a different version of what to call you, but in that moment when you're going,
it's just a case of reverse racism.
Yeah, exactly.
That's all it is. You know what I'm saying?
I also love to get this upset outside like a frickin' Robex juice. That's what's hilarious to me. Like you're in a parking lot on a bucolic spring day, about to hop in your Altima and head to a park to pick your kids up from soccer practice. And this is your hell. Like, I get it, but like beset on all sides by like targets. It's fine. And I get that there's like, that era there's this phenomenon called Schomburgification where every suburban area turns into the same suburban area. Schaumburg is this place outside Chicago that it had a Best Buy and a Robex juice and a Subway. And I get that kind of takes your personal identity from your place. But in the meantime, it's pretty all right. Like you don't have actual problems. These are fake problems of like, these are luxurious problems of like identity and whatever. It is not like you're not in danger. You're not really disenfranchised in any conceivable way. It's just crazy to me. Yeah. All right, we got to take a break. When we come back, we've got some really intense news. Sorry, we saved it for last, but we've got a military man who's also a deputy in Georgia who just got caught doing some really horrible stuff, and then a heartbreaking story coming out of of another kid, this in Georgia as well, who died of COVID because they just didn't seem to believe that he was really going through a medical emergency. Don't go away. More after this.
Every day, the Young Turks delivers 2 hours of solid, fact-based, timely news and progressive commentary on all the day's most important stories. We keep our viewers informed while also providing perspective and insight on the news we cover, so you understand not only what's happening, but also what's happening behind the scenes, the stories behind the stories. Gee, I wonder why we didn't get $15 minimum wage. Because they're all raising money from the guys who don't want to increase the minimum wage.
And we play musical chairs and put these children in one awful detention facility to the next. That's what's happening at the border.
The things that got him banned, he's still spreading. So presumably, I think it's reasonable to say that if you allow him back on the website, he's going to do it again.
Any legal voter that we deem not willing to vote for my side shouldn't vote because it'll replace me that's supposed to vote for my side. That's not how voting works. That's not how democracy works.
And while many people following today's political news can get discouraged about the direction of the nation and the world, that's not us. At TYT, we're genuinely optimistic about the future, and with good reason. Today, wide majorities of Americans agree with our progressive stances on issues ranging from healthcare and education to climate, immigration, and wages. The rising generation of young people are also overwhelmingly progressive in their political beliefs and policy objectives, and they're increasingly flexing their muscle as voters and activists to demand change from our elected officials. The traditional mainstream media is mostly AWOL. They, along with the government and many other cherished institutions, have been captured by corporate interests. Audiences sense that they're not getting the whole story or even the truth from once trusted outlets, whether broadcasting cable TV news networks or national newspapers and magazines.
The Republicans say we will serve our corporate masters at all costs, including killing democracy, yet here we are. Where else do you hear that? You hear that on NBC, on ABC, on CBS? You hear it nowhere.
They don't want to talk about money in politics because it's really hard to pass judgment when your media organization is funded by fossil fuel companies.
The antidote is the Young Turks. Unlike mainstream corporate outlets, we're not beholden to corporate advertisers, to defense contractors, to Wall Street, or to Big Pharma. And we don't carry water for the Republican or Democratic parties. So watch us Monday to Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific, and join the thousands of progressives around the globe who tune in every day for TYT's unmatched, award-winning content and see what it's like to experience a news organization that only answers to you.
I'll continue to sit. I'm going to continue to stand with the people that are being oppressed.
The president labeled him a son of a bitch.
I don't think it's good to be a distraction to your team.
To stand proudly for the national anthem.
You know, some of these people need to move to another country.
Well, you shouldn't be playing, you shouldn't be there. Maybe you shouldn't be in the country.
The president is put in place to amplify the racists in this country.
Black men and boys are killed at an exponentially higher rate than white men and boys, as outlined by PBS. Black people are most likely to be killed by police, found mappingpoliceviolence.org. Personally, my biggest gripe is not seeing how sports and politics have been attached at the hip. From the jockey syndrome to the Negro Leagues to Tommy Smith and John Carlos, Muhammad Ali to modern day and everything in between. This is not an escape. It is a reflection of reality and a reflection of the times.
Everything that we've accomplished over the years is because of our members who've allowed us to remain independent of corporate interests and reach 20 million followers. Now is the time to bring as many people into the progressive movement as possible. We're inviting you to be the change and help bring a community-powered progressive change machine to life. Details are at tyt.com/change. If you're a member, thank you. We need you to remain so. If you're one of the thousands of viewers out there who's not a member yet, the time has come for you to join now. We need you more than ever. tyt.com/change.
Welcome back, everybody. Indisputable again. Dr. Rashad Richey is out today, but he will be back tomorrow once power is restored to his neighborhood. All right, so big thank you to Dave Schmidt for 2 tier 1 subs over on Twitch. Axie Mom gifting a sub, and Court for Jester has reached a year all in a row via Prime. Thank you so much for that. And G-Man 404, y'all the best. Thank you, you as well. Velvet Goldmine, thank you. And Axie Mom, thanks so much, everybody, as well as Andre BMR. Thank you for the Bezos bucks. Also, member section, Mickey C, the silver-haired dragon, says, little Margie Q, quote, I have examples in my district. Some companies and small businesses. Great examples. Now we know exactly who you're referring to. Sounds like Trump's some people tell me. It's exactly right. Just say what the examples are, and she doesn't. And then some more super chats. Jill Wagner, hey Brett, loved your intro. Like talking to my daughter every day. Sorry, just dabbed, Mom. Also, every time I hear Trump, I feel like I lose IQ points, don't we all? And thanks, Trayvon. Say home, Gomez. Shout out to N. Nicole, just because Franny also, and of course, the hosts today. Thank you, thank you. Awesome. All right, we are good to go. Let's get into this next story. This is, buckle up, because this has got a lot of twists and turns. All right, so former Georgia deputy and US Marine Cody Richard Griggers is 28. He was sentenced to 3 months and 8 years in prison, plus 1 year of supervised release on August 3rd in connection with a weapons charge. Now, he pleaded guilty in federal court back in April 26th to 1 count of possession of an unregistered firearm at the time, and he faced up to 10 years in prison. But there is more to this story. They did some digging and found out that this former Georgia deputy did a lot more than own an unregistered firearm. So here's a photo of the deputy and also US Marine. He bragged in message boards about doing horrible things, being part of an extremist group called Shadow Moses, where he had bragged about brutalizing a black man in custody and how he intended to charge black people with felonies to keep them from voting. Here's the Atlanta Black Star reports. Federal authorities revealed in court in April that while he was still working as a Wilkinson County deputy, he told members of the quote Shadow Moses group via text, quote, I'm going to charge them with whatever felonies I can to take away their ability to vote. And then he also wrote, this is amazing, in an October message, quote, castrate, kill, remove voting rights. The only problem is you can't expect to get them all that way. More reporting in the messages. Griggers used extremist language claiming he'd beaten a black theft suspect and talking about killing liberal politicians. He also discussed acquiring illegal firearms, explosives, and suppressors, and made positive references to the Holocaust. Sounds like a really nice guy. And then here's another quote from him. Oh, got wrapped up in my AR and forgot to tell y'all that I beat the S out of an N-word Saturday. Also another expletive, tried to steal a gun magazine from the local gun store. Sheriff's Department said it looked like he fell, according to an affidavit. So much about this is wildly frustrating. All the obvious stuff, like it's another police officer in, using the office to do terrible, horrible things. And then at the same time, just bragging about it to friends. I don't know, Jackson, what do you think?
Well, I think that this really just kind of shows the lack of a filtration system on who really gets to be in here, and then also just just the overall culture of bullying and authoritarianism in our law enforcement. This guy's just openly and freely bragging about the terrible things that he has done, and not only that, he's highly trained. He's not just some, as Shank always says, some schmuck off the streets. You know what I'm saying? This guy, this guy's dangerous. Way more so than most average police officers and people who want to join that. So, this is a growing problem, and as we enter increasingly difficult economic times, and our politics continue to be incredibly polarized, this is the type of stuff that a lot of people want. And there will be more people like this who are drawn into law enforcement as we have to get ourselves out of the hole that we're in. So it's definitely scary to know that these types of people are drawn to the uniform.
Yeah, and as you say, not filtered out. We did a story recently about there was that story where there were 3 men just kind of I think I can't even keep them straight, but there was a guy who got arrested for menacing. He was a police officer, got arrested for menacing and fired ostensibly after all that came through. And then they did some digging and found out before he got hired, he got arrested for the same offense. And it just fell through the cracks. They didn't sniff it out. And he got to be a police officer. And what's worse is he gets to wield his authority after having these things that should obviously have been flagged ahead of time. But if anyone in his presence does anything like 1/4 as bad as what he did, he gets to assault them. And as he says it, at least he's getting some quote sweet stress relief. So the FBI agents discovered the group text with him as a part of a California investigation into a man making violent political statements on social media. Authorities were searching a San Diego home of Gray Zamudio when they discovered Shadow Moses group text and saw the messages. But he, according to those reports, he described the beatings as sweet stress relief. Like,
go to a boxing gym. You know what I'm saying? Like, if that's the type of thing you do, I box. I've been boxing for years. That's a good stress relief. But beating people up is, in fact, not a good stress relief. It really just grows feelings of negativity, negative emotions, sadism, your enjoyment for inflicting pain on others. That's what that is. That's not relieving stress. This guy's crazy. This dude's out of his mind, and he's, so I just. And what's so crazy about it too is how these types of departments are ran on the state level, and there's so many separate departments. Like, what can really be done about it?
Yeah, and then in court, according to this report, he said that, listen, those text messages were jokes.
Oh, of course. All of them were jokes. All of them, you know what I'm saying, were jokes. So it's just, I just. Unfortunately, again, a lot of people, they'll run on police reform, and it sounds great, but how do you actually implement it? You know what I mean? Like, you can pass some type of sweeping legislation, but the people who run police departments are chosen at the state level. They're chosen in local elections, and police unions also have a big deal with funding. So unless these types of things aren't tackled, then nothing's gonna change.
And it was the FBI who found this out. You know what I mean? It wasn't like, it wasn't his own department. The FBI did an investigation of something else and found these. And we're like, oh wow, that guy. So they're not keeping their own house in order. It's so crazy. All right, here's the final story. We're gonna move on. This is a heartbreaker. So a 17-year-old Georgia high school football player died of COVID complications after he was sent home twice by the hospital he went to visit. Here's a photo of him. This is a photo being passed around where they describe him as a #gentle giant. His name's Tyler Fairley. He's a student athlete at Douglas County High School. He succumbed to the disease on August 1st, just over a week after testing positive for the virus. He did not receive a COVID vaccine. But here's the story. I mean, and we don't have a lot of time, so I'm just kind of gonna take you through the main beats of it. After receiving the test results on July 23rd, he was taken to Wellstar Douglas Hospital in Douglasville, an Atlanta suburb, on 2 separate occasions by his mother. He was discharged after being diagnosed with pneumonia on the first visit and was told to hydrate himself and follow up after a follow-up trip to the same hospital. Quote, one of the male nurses told the other male nurse, "We can't hurt ourselves trying to help him into this car, we gotta go." And they let go of him and he fell flat on his face in the backseat of my car, according to his mother. I was like, can you all observe him for a while? Because I said, this is not him. He's not talking, he's not responding. And they were like, he's just in pain because of COVID. Nettles and her husband took Fairley to the Children's Healthcare of Atlanta in Sandy Springs in city north of Atlanta. Doctors there say that Fairley was suffering from multiple seizures before dying on August 1st. So they refused care to him. Their defense is like, well, he didn't get the vaccine. And it seems from the reports from the mothers, the allegation is essentially like, we'll get into it in a second, but like the family said that they were treating him different because he hadn't been vaccinated. And that they said they didn't want to hurt themselves getting him into the car. So they just dropped him face down in the back seat. It's just such a heartbreaking story.
Yeah, I think that, this really highlights the way our medical system works as a whole, the way our healthcare system functions. It functions based on privilege. It functions based on who are we gonna believe, based on how much money they have and how much money they can bring to the hospital system, the insurance system. We pay health insurance every single month. It goes up every single year. Oftentimes we don't use it whatsoever. And then when it's time to use it, they don't cover everything. And then when it's time for people to get real help, excuses get made. And this happens to Black people all over the country. This happens to Black women in child labor. This happens in every facet of the medical industry that you can think of, because ultimately what matters is the dollar bill. And if people perceive you as someone who can't really help to stimulate the system, then you're just another number that doesn't matter. The money that's limited has to go elsewhere.
Yeah. Every other country, every other developed nation has a healthcare for everybody. Yeah. And you don't have to drive around until you find something in network. You don't get a giant penalty afterwards because you went to a place that was close when you were afraid that your family member was gonna die. And all those countries pay half as much per person as us. Half. Mm-hmm. We die sooner and pay twice as much, but our capitalist system's totally nailing it. And they'll say we have the best services, we have the best technology. For who? No, if you can buy it, yeah. But if you're just some person, if you're a kid who again, like, and then there's the racial element where they call him a gentle giant. There's actual proven discrimination where they're like, he can handle it, he's faking it, or they're stronger than other people. It's disgusting. Anyways, poor kid had a scholarship for Morehouse College to play football, and he won't, thanks to a failure of the medical system. Anyways, on that note, we got to take a break, but this is the last we'll see you. Jackson, how can people find you?
You can find Politiscope on iOS or Android. Download. We help you see what's going on in Congress. We help you donate to political campaigns. We got some more cool features coming. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Politiscope app. Appreciate it.
Awesome. We got to take a break. When we come back, I'm going to toss to a debate with Dr. Ritchie that you may have seen before, but stick around. We have more Indisputable after this. And thank you to the
You know what the progressive movement needs? It needs a little energy, a little pizzazz, maybe a little caffeine. Oh, coffee. But what if it was Too Strong Coffee? Yes, new, toostrongcoffee.com/TYT. Look, this helps progressive causes. It's also organic and fair trade, so you've got peace of mind that it was done right, and it happens to taste great. So check it out right now at toostrongcoffee.com/TYT.
300 million is a pretty good number, Well, that's the size of the US population. You know what our next target is? The size of the entire world. We just crossed 5 billion views on YouTube.
I mean, imagine 10 years ago thinking one day. We looked at you like, are you nuts?
Young Turks has just passed another milestone. 15 billion views.
Damn.
All All right, lots of comments. You guys are the best.
I'm gonna read a few comments from our members.
Mr. Methuselah says on YouTube, super chat, thanks for all the important work you do for TYT for the movement.
Do you know who had the first super chat when I got back from vacation? You won't be surprised to find out. Rob Shively. What do you know? Rob says, rejoice, for Dragon Daddy has returned.
This question sent to us by Izzy Sanchez Jr. Is it me, or is Meghan McCain talking as fast as Ben Shapiro? Is that the way the right tries to look smart and intellectual? Well, yes.
Michael Nathan writes it on Twitter. Did Anna choose Cenk's outfit today? I'm sure it wasn't Cenk himself. Man Bun Jenkins Skinny Jeans says, so now Anna has pointed out, okay, that's his handle.
T. Joyce, 1971, saying Donald Trump is good at pulling out of things, NAFTA, the Iran deal, NATO. It's just too bad Fred Trump didn't.
All right, let me do a little quick plug here. It's not even a plug, I'm bragging, okay? I'm bragging, watch me. We have a channel on YouTube, a whole channel devoted just to the Young Turks. It's badass, right? Wow, man. I can see the voice.
You guys are rock stars.
Unbelievable. Senator Sanders, welcome to Rebel Headquarters. Man, you guys are amazing. We gave you what you wanted. Okay. Speaking of shirts.
I have a surprise.
You reached a lot of people. You are the Young Turks. And we have spread that progressive message wide and far. Let's keep it going.
Here's what we do. We go beyond the headline. We are willing to engage in transparent conversations with those who do not think like me. We also make sure that you know what's happening not only nationally, but in your local area. Make sure you tune in to Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Ritchie, Monday through Friday, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 11:30 a.m. Pacific Time.
Cool news, shoptyt.com now has books. There's a whole bunch of books there. You're gonna be shocked to find out that they're largely progressive. Of course! Ryan Grimm's book, We've Got People, is there. It's a fantastic story from Jesse Jackson to Bernie Sanders to AOC that explains the progressive movement probably better than any book I've ever read. Speaking of awesome books, my dad's got a book out called The Original Young Turk, where he goes from the poorest olive farmer you ever met in your life to living the American dream.
Welcome back, everybody. We have a debate for you to watch in a second, but first, some super chats. Shadow and Roses said, "Thank you for the super chat. Adds a new layer to Foxhound, doesn't it?" Next up, we have Wyatt Summers. Sorry for being patronizing. Here's $2. I get it. I get it. Good joke. David Lucero saying, "Hey you, thanks for the super chat." Groove Dragon said fascism could more appropriately be called corporatism because it is a merger of the state and corporate power. Benito Mussolini, 100%. And if you look into like the collaborations between corporations and the Nazi government, that's what happened. It was exactly that. It was let's just put our corporations first and the government will happen. We'll help them with it. Maintaining all that. Yander VK says, so much for supporting first responders. And James Moore says, bet she was prom queen in her final year. Fantastic. Eric the Red in the members section. So the question is, was he a deputy because he's a violent racist fascist, or was it just an oversight on the part of his boss? I don't know. It might be, is it a prereq? Do you have to do that? Is that the admissions test? Thank you, Zakharov Lopatev, for gifting 5 tier 1 subs. We did have a hype train going on. Duwu87, thank you. Aximom, fantastic gifts, and benevolent goddess, benevolent as ever. multiple times, Top Cat Glass and company. Thank you so much for everything you do. You make this show possible. This next debate that we have for you is one of my favorites. For those of you who need your dose of Dr. Richie, you're about to get it. This is a debate that he had with Josh Bernstein, who is just really tough to talk to. But Dr. Richie did the Lord's work and suffered fools. So here you go. Take a look.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the bullpen. In the bullpen today, I have Josh Bernstein. Josh Bernstein is host of the Josh Bernstein Uncensored Show, an American conservative talk show that airs daily. He's also known for his prior show on YouTube called The Josh Bernstein Show. Josh, welcome to Indisputable.
Great to be on the program with you.
Let me start by asking you about your views on Black Lives Matter. You have called Black Lives Matter a terrorist organization. Do you stand by that?
I certainly do. We have to look at the founding of Black Lives Matter. It was founded by Asians for Black Lives, which was run by a communist by the name of Pam Tao Lee. We also have to look at the fact of Alex Tom, which was part of the CPA, not a certified public accountant, folks, the Chinese Progressive Association. These were folks that were in contact with Alicia Garza and Patrisse Cullors. As a matter of fact, Alicia Garza and Alex Tom were activists together at UC San Diego, which is where they met. And they kind of worked with Liberation Front, Netroots, and a bunch of other organizations to start the riots in Ferguson. So if we're looking at where they come from, as well as their own words, as Patrisse Cullors has said herself, that we are indeed trained Marxists. Well, if we have Marxism and communism in the United States of America, I would consider that to be adversarial to the US Constitution. So yes, I would agree with that.
That is really interesting because what you just described was not terrorism. Do you know the definition of terrorism, Josh?
Sure, yeah. Terrorism is somebody that incites violence, mayhem, murder for political reasons and gain.
So let me ask you this question, and that's very close to the definition. Are members of the KKK terrorists?
I would say so, absolutely. They were founded by the Democrats, let's not forget that either.
Oh, well, they were founded by Dixiecrats, and those Dixiecrats are Republicans today. And I guarantee you, if you took a poll, 100% of the KKK Ku Klux Klan members would be Republicans and Trump supporters. So let's be very clear about who they are today, right? Today,
okay, so the history doesn't matter, right?
And I don't give a damn about history. I'm a black man first. Let me say this to you, brother. Let me say this to you, Josh. Josh, let me be very clear, brother. Let me be very clear with you. I don't play them games. Racist Democrats exist. Listen to me, brother. Racist Democrats exist today. They existed then, okay? Racist Republicans exist today. They existed then. But there is no coincidence that the KKK endorsed your guy for president. You don't have a problem with that?
First of all, if you're talking about David Duke, David Duke.
Oh, I'm not just talking about David Duke. I'm not just talking about David Duke.
And Trump obviously did not accept his endorsement.
But you don't find it problematic that groups that you would call terrorist organizations like the KKK, who have engaged in murder and mayhem, who are listed as a murderous group, and even you yourself say should be denounced, you don't find it problematic that they are endorsing the people that you support?
Well, how many times have we had Biden be endorsed by the Communist Party USA? How many others? Barack Obama, how many times has he been endorsed by communists and
Marxists? You want to compare the Communist Party?
Endorses who.
Think about what you're saying. The Communist
Party control who endorses who.
The Communist Party
want to go. Let's go
represents the Communist Party represents an adversarial political ideology to that of capitalism. I understand that, but to somehow compare the Communist Party or communism as a political socio-economic ideology to that of murdering ass KKK members makes absolutely no sense.
How do you separate the two? If they both believe in Karl Marx and they both believe in communism, which is complete control and totalitarianism for that matter. How do you separate the two? You can't.
Well, in your mind, I know in your mind, somehow individuals that subscribe to communism or those that hold the ideology of communism up high, that they are the same as a KKK member. It doesn't make sense to most people, but I know it makes sense to you. I learned before the show I only have a few minutes with you because you have a hard out at a certain time. So let me bring you to this point. Police reform. Police reform. Okay. Are you for police reform?
Depends on what that police reform is. If you're talking about defunding the police, in which New York cut 45, they cut 12 million. 45,000 fewer arrests in New York, which was a 58% homicide increase. Chicago is 31,000 less arrests, and they have a 65%. So yes, if you're going to cut the police like Ted Wheeler did, for instance, in Portland, Oregon, which by the way was ablaze 150 nights in a row or whatever it was, you're going to see a rise in violent crime and homicide. Clearly, every single city that is run by liberal Democrats has the higher crime rates and they have the higher murder rates, and it all coincides with cutting the police.
No, it doesn't. That's a lie. That's not true at all.
It's not a lie. It's actually true. FBI,
brother, you told us you only have a few minutes. So let me go ahead and give you. Let me go ahead and give you the other stats, obviously, that you are not familiar with.
Scholars.org. Is that where we're going here?
No, sir. I'm going to go to Marilyn Mosby. Marilyn Mosby, who decided to.
That's a good one from Baltimore.
It's a great one, brother. And I encourage you to do some research and educate yourself. Marilyn Mosby, during COVID-19, decided to not prosecute crimes of survival anymore or petty crimes. She was told by every member of law enforcement and every executive in law enforcement that crime would increase in her jurisdiction. It did not, sir. That's a damn lie.
It actually increased 55%.
Sir, it actually went down
28%. You are correct.
Sir, I'm going to give you the real facts. In her jurisdiction, and you can find this through 2 university studies, as well as an article that was printed based on those studies of crime stats in Baltimore. Not only did she decrease crime, violent crime went down by double digits in her jurisdiction. Also, arrests went down. And they were able to connect individuals who needed social rehabilitation, such as those that were dealing with alcohol addiction, drug addiction, or mental health disorders. They were able to connect them to help, and it decreased everything around them. And now that jurisdiction has engaged in that practice for a time. She is now being praised by members of law enforcement. Let me take you to Ithaca, New York. Ithaca, New York, they did a survey. In this survey, Josh, it came out to the conclusion that 51% of 911 calls did not even require a cop. It required a social worker. So Ithaca, New York Council.
Please put that gun and knife down. We don't want you to stab that person, or we'll be very mad at you.
Josh,
give me a break.
Give
me a break, Josh. The police are vilified in America, in urban cesspool cities.
Brother, your privilege
and therefore, what happens? Crime increases. Correct? Okay. And by the way, your
privilege don't work here. You're yapping, you're bumping your gums, nobody can hear you. Your privilege don't work here, brother. So let me be very clear. Ithaca, New York said, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna hire individuals who actually are trained as social workers, since that's what our community says they need. Ithaca, New York has engaged in reimagined policing. Here's something else that has happened. In Chicago, you have more cops than ever before. They continue to hire more cops. These cops have not been able to arrest themselves out of socioeconomic dysfunction. Those cops are not creating more arrests, and they're only solving 2% of the crimes. That's a study that just got released. So I encourage you to look up those stats when you get a moment. Here's how you actually combat crime. If your city or county says that they are hiring more cops, your city and county, they have failed you, because all they're saying is they have no idea how to deal with the underlying issues of criminality in your county, in your city. How do you tackle that? You tackle that by looking at what causes the crime. Crimes of survival, poverty, drug addiction, alcohol addiction, whatever it may be. Now, if you're not facing that problem, you're going to continue to hire more cops and not actually get the crime issue under control. All right? You had fun? You can unmute yourself now. Josh, go ahead, unmute yourself. I can't hear you, Josh. You can unmute yourself. You know how to hit the mute button? You know how to unmute yourself? Just hit the same button. He can't figure it out. All right, we'll give him some time. Can you figure it out, Josh?
Okay, there you go. You there?
Yeah. So
I'm
Josh,
not sure what happened. I apologize for that.
Here's the thing, Josh. Josh, listen to me, man. Seriously. If I was on your show, I would not overtalk you. I understand that if I'm on your show, you are part debater, part moderator.
You can come on my show anytime you want.
I don't give a damn about your show, and I don't want to come on your show. What you have said about black people and Black Lives Matter being a terrorist organization, when they are the reason why cops have been put on notice. They are the reason why there is a semblance of justice happening in the criminal justice system. Oh, come on, man, really?
I'm not. I'm an ideologue. There's a huge difference, buddy, a huge difference. How you envision the world with you in it and what you see in your world is very different than saying that someone, because they're black or white or Hispanic or green or purple or glow in the dark, is an issue. I am not racist. I'm an ideologue.
You said you're not racist. That's fine. That's what you say on the record. That's fine. Do you believe, are you a Christian individual?
I am not. I'm 100% Jewish, and I'm a huge supporter of Christianity and Christians, because I understand that if the you know what hit the fan in America, it wouldn't be the liberal Jews that would be protecting this country. It would be the evangelical Christians and the Christian right.
You mean the evangelical Christians?
The evangelical Christians that support Israel, of course, and make sure that our allies are safe.
I can go into 1,000 directions with that, but you don't have any
issues with Israel. Judeo-Christian nation, whether you like it or not, buddy.
We're not a Judeo-Christian nation. Where is that in the Constitution? Where?
Are we not a Judeo-Christian nation?
Where is that in the Constitution? That's
Whether
the founding
it's in the Constitution or not, that's our founding principles and values.
No, it's not. No, it's not. The founding fathers, many of them were deists, brother.
Okay, let me ask you this: is the Constitution a living, breathing document?
Yes,
that
of
should
course
be
it is.
changed over time.
Of course it is.
No, it should not be.
Why do we have
amendments? Law.
Why do we have amendments?
See, that's just the way the left looks at things.
Why do we have amendments?
Relative, cultural relativism. How wonderful!
Gosh, man, you so
you're not going to get there, buddy. Trust me.
Do you know why the Constitution has amendments or not? Do you know? Do you know at all?
Professor. Am I the professor know-it-all? No, I'm not.
But you just said the Constitution is not a living document. The Constitution said I was 3/5 of a man. You believe that?
Yes, Democrats told you that.
You believe that? You believe I'm 3/5 of a man?
Democrats also passed Jim Crow laws.
This is a real simple question.
And don't forget, blacks would never even had the right to vote if it wasn't for the civil rights and
3/5 of a man.
Republicans. As
you
the
can't even answer
out there,
that's how racist you are, brother. You can't even answer a simple ass question.
I can answer the question.
I'm 3/5 of a man according to the Constitution.
Of course you're not 3/5 of a man.
And on that, brother, I'll let you go.
Of course you're not.
You being on the board.
You're a human being.
I appreciate it.
And you know what? The folks that cry racist the most are the ones on the left.
Silly.
There's nothing silly about it.
Listen, I want to bring you back on the show, but you told us. You told us you had a hard out. Can I continue to debate you, or you got to go?
Let me see.
Damn that next interview, man. Let's keep this going.
We should have had more time. I agree. I could probably do another 5 minutes before the.
Let me bring up some additional stats to you about police reform. 96% of Americans believe police reform needs to happen. 58%. They believe it needs to be dramatic. 51% of Republicans believe police reform needs to happen ASAP. One of the realities of police reform is qualified immunity. It needs to go. Do you understand qualified immunity? And what's your stance on qualified immunity?
My stance on police reform in general is the fact that we need more police officers on the beat, on the street,
you don't know what qualified immunity is.
Not less, okay?
Okay, so that's your answer to a question.
Qualified immunity or any other thing. The bottom line is, should we have people, be victims of police brutality? Of course not. I don't see that at all. But it's just amazing that we have Ashley Babbitt, who was murdered 6 months ago, and yet we still don't have the name of the person. But yet every single time somebody who is white that kills a black individual, we know the name of that police officer that day.
We know that terrorists.
Isn't that terrible?
We know that terrorists decided.
The police are not the terrorists. The police are not the problem. Are there bad apples in every bunch? Of course there are.
We know that terrorists, they decided to
you can't
go on the Capitol property and commit acts of crime. Now,
Professor, you
let me
can't
bring it to
defund the
Chicago.
police.
Let me bring it to Chicago because you said something that I want to analyze.
Go ahead, because I have Chicago's information as well.
Chicago, they have engaged in more cops, more arrests, more fighting crime. But here's what has happened. They solved 2% of the crimes in Chicago. They have had an over-bloviated police budget. The money in Chicago has not equated to a decrease in the socioeconomic patterns that lead to the crime.
Well, who runs Chicago? That's why they call it Crook County.
You just want to go back to politics of it. Explain to me why hiring more cops does not get the outcome you said it should get. Tell me.
Chicago made 31,000 fewer arrests, but saw a homicide rate increase by 65%. Those are crime bureau statistics from the FBI. Now, unless you don't believe the FBI, I don't know what to tell you.
Wait a minute, go back to that stat, brother, because I know
Let's talk about Crook County, Illinois.
Let's talk about the stat you just brought up.
Okay.
That decrease in arrest happened when they hired more police officers who decided not to do their damn job out of protest to the local politicians. So you literally had more cops on the beat than ever before. You had more money in their budget than ever before, but you had cops calling in with the blue flu, not doing their damn job that they were sworn to do. So you had less arrest in that city, and you don't hold those cops accountable for that?
I'm telling you right now, this was the Crime Bureau statistics from the FBI.
Come on, man, I just gave you the context for those stats.
From the
I know those
Fascist
stats.
Bureau of Intimidation.
You had more cops than ever before, and they could not arrest themselves nor police themselves out of the dysfunction of criminality in Chicago. More cops does not equate to less crime. Do you get my point?
So, okay, let's throw it back to you then. How would you solve police reform in the United States of America without defunding the people that are protecting our neighborhoods? Go ahead.
And I'm glad you posed that question, brother. So
hang on. What? Give me.
Okay, number one.
Can you call me back in 5 minutes?
Yeah, call him back. Yeah, he's to get. Yeah, let's get this.
Sorry, this is too good.
All right, you're absolutely correct. So I'm glad you posed that question. Here's what has to happen. Number one, you have to take defunding the police seriously as a reimagined tool for policing. Here's what's not working. Wait a minute, brother. Listen, you asked me a question. I'm going to tell you how it works. 2% of major crimes get solved within the first 2 years of any police precinct. That's just a national average, okay? 2%. Now, name any government body that had that type of performance stat that we wouldn't question. Why would we not question the effectiveness of a 2% solve rate for major crimes? We should question that. So
we should question that. Why do you think that is the case?
No, you posed the question to me, and
I am, and I'll answer it, or you can answer it. We can both answer it for that matter.
The majority of arrests that happen in any jurisdiction is connected to poverty, mental health, alcohol use or addiction, or drug use or addiction. If you're not actually trying to remedy those underlying issues in your local community, you are going to continue to permeate the same ecosystem, the same cycle of crime. That's why defund the police is really about taking another look at how we do policing. And if your city has 30% to 50% of the calls, your 911 calls, are not 911 or police officer required, why do we send a cop to every single 911 call when the police officers are saying, we aren't trained to do this? We need more training, or we need qualified individuals to deal with folks that have a mental health disorder or something else is going on. That is common sense, brother. There's nothing wrong with that. And
there is some common sense in there. However, why wouldn't you send an armed police officer to a domestic disturbance call, regardless of whether or not you think it's going to be peaceful or not? The bottom line is things can escalate pretty quickly. Tempers can get out of control, things can happen, people could resist arrest. You're always going to need backup, and that backup is in the form of a handgun. Now that doesn't mean that you whip out your gun immediately and want to shoot first. Of course not.
Name something for me.
Of course not.
Name one city that has been able to arrest themselves out of a criminal or crime problem.
I think there's been several cities.
Just name one.
Okay. I'll give you for instance, Arizona. Okay.
Arizona.
I'm talking Gilbert, Arizona. I'm talking
Gilbert.
There's so
Arizona.
many. Gosh, Chandler, Arizona.
They just arrested themselves out of socioeconomic dysfunction.
For instance.
Yeah. What are the stats?
Colorado.
What are the stats, brother?
Stats right here, right offhand.
But if you really believe this happens, you should know at least one city where it's happened.
Guns, you have law and order. Where you don't have guns, you don't have law and order. It's pretty simple.
Let me get this right.
To figure that out. Okay.
You're saying. If cops have guns, or you have a lot of people with guns,
S-hole city in America that is run by Democrats, that is infested with crime.
So you're calling cities
infested with drugs, unwed
and you're
mothers,
not racist. You're not racist, but you're using S-hole cities to describe what? Urban cities?
Many cities that have high crime
rates. S-hole cities?
Huh?
They're S-hole cities to you?
There are many of them out there that have crime issues, absolutely.
And they're S-hole cities,
and they all have one common denominator, Professor. They're run by Democrats, okay?
So let me clarify something for you.
That's the reality of this situation.
Let me clarify
something for you. When Republicans run cities, there's lower crime. There's more opportunity.
You are one of the most extreme individuals as it relates to your rhetoric, and that's fine. You're an extreme guy. But let's be very clear about what's happening in cities, jurisdictions.
Call them like I see them.
Okay. Are you able to listen to my rebuttal or no? Can you do that? You can stand yourself to do that?
Hey, go ahead.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. So in the cities that you're referring to, I want you to be reminded that urban cities typically have different socioeconomic challenges than rural cities. But let me be very clear about states that have the highest crime. 8 out of the 9 states that have the highest crime are in fact run by Republicans. 8 out of the 9 states that are the poorest are run by Republicans. 8 out of the 9 states that do the lowest on the educational chart for K through 12 education are all run by Republicans. My point to you is this, brother. You keep going back to a partisan angle, and I can play that game with you all day. But referring to American cities as S-hole cities is something that shows shows your racism. No, he referred to black nations as S-hole nations. That's what he did.
Well, I don't think that's appropriate. Because I'm not saying
racist.
That all black
damn it being appropriate is racist, correct?
Are terrible. It
is racist, right?
Huh? No, I don't think the president is a racist. But how can you say the president is a racist when he was the first president to pass the First Step Act?
I'm glad you brought that up too. All right, let's talk about the First Step Act since you want to go there.
3.9% unemployment rate for black
Let's talk about the First Step Act. Let's go back. Come on, man. Let's walk this back. Let me have a response to that, brother.
Go ahead.
The First Step Act, which affected 0.02% of the black population, by the way, not even 1%. The First Step Act was a continuation of the Obama Act, which was made retroactive. President Obama should have done that, and he did not. I have criticized him for that since day one. But let's be very clear about what the Trump administration did. They defunded the Pell Grant, where individuals in prison who could have access to college funding did not. The greatest way to stop recidivism is to make sure you have an educated man or woman when they get out of prison. They discontinued that program.
It depends on what that education is. If they're going to go to their colleges and get indoctrinated by left-wing Marxist professors, probably not a good education.
They also decided to defund halfway houses that helps an individual translate and transfer back into society. Here's what else the Justice Department did. They sent out a memo saying that we will prosecute to the fullest extent of the law anyone who is arrested for a non-violent drug offense. So while on one hand, he has this policy that says, okay, we're going to impact less than 1% of the black population, while at the same time having other policies that impact 10 to 15% of the population. population, but telling you that's reform. That's not reform, damn it. That's moving backwards. And a person like you who reads enough should have seen between the lines on something like that.
I have seen what I have seen. I've seen the lowest unemployment rate for Black Americans in history. I've seen the lowest Hispanic unemployment rate. I've seen more women working, less people on welfare. And damn it, my phone
those are misnomer numbers. A U3 rating system compared to a U6, but my producers are telling me I'm out of time. I would love to have you back.
Give me 1 second, 1 second, 1 second.
No, he can go. You can go now. Go ahead and do your other
We got to do this again, Professor.
I hope so.
You're a good man.
Well,
getting into the cage with me.
God bless you. God bless you, man.